line. We have to show the women the bigger picture. At the end of the road, what this is really all about. In order for us to basically save America. If not, we're just pretty much doing what you see in my PTR.
Well, let's help, bro.
I got it, bro. I got
it. Oh, shit. Imagine that.
You were cooking to the last one, bro. I feel like that movement is needed. It's just the next biological adaptation of black men, bro. If they're not going to cooperate, we have to, evolve past, eventually they'll die out. So it's the way it is.
Hey, cross y'all fingers that we win this case today, bro. It's coming out in June.
No, y'all niggas not gonna win.
I don't know, bro. It looks like 5-4 to me, bro. Gorsuch and Rock, the only ones when I was watching this shit, bro.
You want to make a bet?
What's the case?
The birthright citizenship. I just got to watching the whole thing.
I read this is the first time in
history on the table.
Yeah.
That a sitting president is sitting in on the oral arguments.
Yeah. What? No. So I thought Sauer did really good, like the general, right? They got arguing the case of the government. But Gorsuch and Roberts, bro, the way that they were asking questions at the very beginning, bro, was like very skeptical about like the theory. But I thought dude was wrong point, bro. I was looking at the timeline and like how people are kind of grafting the whole civil rights, how people are able to exploit the civil rights movement to expand to all these other groups. I was like, hey, yo, this is like a clubhouse.
I'm gonna put money on it right now. $100.
I'm not putting no money on this.
$100 unanimous decision that they gonna reject that bullshit.
Nigga,
what's on the table exactly? I don't remember what's on the table.
Wait. Bucks.
That all the blue brown niggas need.
Hold on. The wording is
should be alive today.
All right, cool. So we got $100. You're saying it's gonna be unanimous, right?
Do you want to accept that?
Yes, absolutely. So it has to be 9-0.
Wait, why are you
run it? $100. Hold on, no, you said 9-0. Let's run it. $100. Right. It has to go against the opinion. Bro, I already know that fucking Alito and Clarence Thomas is already a win. So just shoot me the dough.
No. You're fucking
smoking crack, bro. Sorry, brother. Let's go.
Crack.
No, that's totally fine.
You can ask anybody.
That's totally fine, but that is the deal, though. $100.
Yeah. That's fine. We agreed on that.
So you guys need the map?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna tell you.
Yes, sir.
No, let them clear it up.
Yeah, you just gonna interrupt me, bro? Like this what?
Be nice to her.
You just interrupt me.
They can put your hand like in your pocket, Eric.
You felt like you had to interrupt. Like you heard me speaking. Like the fuck. That entitlement is crazy. But anyways, is anybody with like any sense of decency or like knowledge of history or legal theory, bro, they will tell you that it's complete, utter bullshit. Like, I'm just imagine when the case was first heard against birthright citizenship, like I think it was in like 1800s or something. This was a very racist time in America. Like there was Jews, Chinese, or any other group that wasn't white here, like specifically from like England, was discriminated against, right? And you had that, like, what is it? I think it's like 7 and
after Wong. If they wanted to clarify Wong and make domicility a requirement, they would have simply done that. Why? They had power in Section 5 of the 14th Amendment. Without birthright citizenship and an open jus soli, there would have been nothing to situate the Negro as American citizens. Hello? Strangely, the argument that the Trump administration is arguing would suggest that my ancestors, strangely, were less citizens than Juan Kim Ark was. That's the insane part.
for allegiance would also have made children born to Confederate soldiers within the seceded states non-citizens as well.
Confederate soldiers!
They argued for some time today that the reason domicility is important is to ensure that one can measure
domicility,
the amount of allegiance that that a child's parents have to the United States. And I don't know how one could argue that folks on the Confederate side were loyal to the United States. They were not, because they wanted to secede. So
he's stealing all my hellos.
But they wouldn't argue that all of those whites who were born on the Confederate side
were not slaves.
Were not citizens.
Make it make sense.
It is a strange, and again, I'm gonna put my cards on the table. If the United States got rid of dual citizenship, many countries don't have dual citizenship. Many countries, Japan doesn't have it. China doesn't have it. You know, that's the one thing. You know how they can get rid of it? Through Congress. You know how they can clarify Section 1? Through Congress.
Well, they clarified it already.
Well, I mean, they could change it. Yes, I was saying they did clarify it. Exactly. But I'm saying they can change it.
Yeah.
It's a political argument. Just make the political argument. Go to the American people, win enough seats, get rid of the filibuster, and change it.
So Trump and his friends are trying to do the thing that they accuse the folks on the left of doing. They're the ones who are trying to turn the Supreme Court into a judicial activist.
Yes. This would be the height of judicial activism. I still don't, again, if you don't like the fact that there's, and Trent said about anchor babies, the Russian, they can easily change that. Just propose a law, pass it, and somebody could sign it. Well, it's that simple.
There's already a regulation that allows the U.S. government to turn away women at any port of entry who appear to be pregnant. They can do that if they want.
Yes.
So there is a way to solve the so-called anchor baby problem. By the way, were you listening when they asked Sauer for evidence about the anchor baby problem, and his response was, the Chinese media tell us that the number is in the 100,000s. Did you hear him say that?
Unreal.
It was crazy.
I don't know what they're doing.
The Solicitor General of the United States would refer to a foreign newspaper.
It's unreal. From China.
From China, of all places.
A Republican.
Yes. I was blown away.
I mean, Andre's explanation is the best. It's a certain kind of political red meat. I get it. But Supreme Court decisions, as we now see, they kind of come and go. If you want real political meat, why was this not part of the SAVE Act? Huh? You could have made this part of the SAVE Act. You made so transgender in sports is a big deal that Congress needs to fix to save America, but not this. Come on, man. That's why this MAGA movement has hollowed itself out. It has hollowed itself out. It makes absolutely no sense to me. They can go to Congress and Congress can fix it. They can run on it in the midterms. Run on it for presidency. It was just terrible. But it is, I'm gonna have to say, all the people that are making the claim that, this is about Black Americans, if you listen today, the government effectively made the argument that Wong King Art is more of a citizen than many of us Black Americans. That's actually what they said today. It's exactly what they said today. Nobody can convince me otherwise. That's exactly what they said today. Y'all keep rolling with Donald Trump and right wing. I'm going to stay on the plantation, at least pragmatically. They made the argument that because his parents were domiciled, and he was domiciled, this is what the administration said, he was a citizen. Enslaved persons were not domiciled, and they certainly did not have allegiance to the United States, and many of them were illegally trafficked here after, say, 1808. when that law that Jefferson signed went into effect, that is the ban the transatlantic slave trade. Let alone, even when the transatlantic slave trade was legal, people were still illegally trafficked and smuggled and conscripted. There was still illegality in how black people got here. That's the argument the government made today. That the Trump administration said that many of our ancestors were less citizens or should not have been citizens than Wong Kim Ark on domicility and allegiance. If your parent, I'll put it this way, Frederick Douglass, did he have where was he? When they went to Canada, it's a mess. By the way, I don't want to get too dorky, so I'll stop there, but I will say this. They never brought up free blacks. There's a whole bunch of free blacks that had been freed before the formation of the United States. Where do they fit in? Where do their ancestors fit in? A complete mess. Yeah, they got to stop doing history. I don't know what it is with lawyers and history. You know, I went to a lecture where I'm not going to talk about it. But I once talked to Gary Carrick. I don't want to talk about it. But anyway, this is a mess. This is the worst shit I've ever heard in the Supreme Court. I can't think of anything more poorly argued. And the man today, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel sorry for him, Hurricane. You want me to tell you why I feel sorry for him? He didn't believe any word he was saying.
Well, listen, I would love to see how many students sign up for any class he teaches. He sounded like an idiot today, and his recitation of history was just abysmal. I'm not a historian. I barely know anything about history.
It was awful.
But even I could tell that he was lying through his teeth. And the way Barrett and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh were coming at him and asking him these questions, they were like, listen, we all hang out together, but this is some bullshit. What's going on?
Oh, Trump tweeted, "We are the only country in the world stupid enough to allow birthright citizenship." President Donald J. Trump. Huh?
I got two questions, if I could, if there's time.
Go ahead, brother. What do you think?
So, two questions. The second one is pretty serious. The first one is, it's actually serious. Ban, do you realize that when you get, like, really angry, has anyone ever told you that you sound like Ice-T? Have you ever heard that? Okay, second question.
I like that. That's funny.
You really do sound like Ice-T, for real.
I'll take it.
It's pretty serious. If I'm black, because this is LeWong James of Beijing doing the damn thing. If I'm black and Chinese, what does this really mean for me?
Well, I don't know where you're citizen. You can't have dual citizenship with China, so I don't think
You can't.
Yeah, so you're not. No. By the way, I looked it up. Unrestricted jus soli is United States, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Jamaica, Barbados, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Peru. What do all of them have in common? Anybody know? They're all New World countries. They're all New World countries. Unrestricted jus soli arises out of new imaginings of the nation state vis-a-vis the advent of the so-called New World. There are historical reasons for it. Why would you want to go to the French system? Trent says it's stupid. Why would you think the French version of citizenship makes sense? It's not stupid. That's the whole draw. I don't understand people. It's a dumb thing. Go back to old world. Like, Hurricane, were you listening to the way the man was trying to go through? Not only, I know y'all might have missed it, British common law, but at points he was alluding to Roman law.
Yeah,
What the fuck?
the reason they did that is that there's this guy named Ilya Werman from the University of Minnesota Law School who has published at least one article about the origins of birthright citizenship turning on domicility, and his references are Old British common law and Roman common law. So Werman is responsible for all that bullshit.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Thomas.
Roman,
Go ahead.
law to make the basis of the child of an enslaved person coming through be perpetuated by the mother during the colonial period.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but I heard the second part. What was the first part, Richard? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Whether they use Roman law to do that.
Oh, yeah. Part 2 and Yeah. Roman law, that's why it's so odd. I mean, I don't want to get too dorky. Roman law is effectively the foundation for slavery in the Anglo world, in the Anglo-American world. That's what the British relied on in the UK and in their colonies, including Jamaica, the United States, Barbados, etc. It's a very, it was an interesting shout out. But I don't know, man. I'm offended. I'm not really offended. I'm offended. I'm not really offended that much on this stuff. I just can't believe that these people suggest that people in my ancestry were less entitled to citizenship than Juan King Ark. I'm offended.
Trent said it's stupid.
I mean, well, Trent doesn't care about the law. He's just saying stuff.
Hey, peace to the room. I'm sorry, Ben, were you speaking?
No.
So today, peace to the space. What up, y'all? What up, Patty? What up, everybody? My squad. So today was the first time I think I've ever heard Donald Trump use the word slave. Right? I've heard him use the word slave, and I was listening. I don't know what the source was. It was the TV in the background, and I jumped into the effect. And you guys may have discussed it already.
We just listened to 3 hours of 2 and 4 minutes, 2 hours and 45 minutes of Supreme Court arguments.
Okay, cool. So, you know, this was anyway. You know that the amendment was written for the children of slaves. That's the first time I've ever heard what this sounded like. I don't know. You know, I gotta listen to it again, but it sounded like it was a gift that he gave us, like it was some form of, like it just. And I'm gonna listen to it again, but that's what it seemed he was saying. He was alluding to. And so today's the first time I've ever heard Mr. Trump use that word slave or slavery. Today's the first.
How does that impact the arguments we just spent almost 3 hours listening to?
I didn't listen to the arguments today, but I'm just making a note on the back. I'm just marking it.
He's used the word slave before.
Yeah.
Many times.
Many
on Twitter
times.
and in speeches.
Yeah, okay.
In the last year.
Okay. Come on, y'all. What were we talking about in the argument? So what was it? Domicility? Alexandria said birthright to citizenship. It's all over, Omar. The whole thing is done. Birthright to illegal immigrants is chaotic. It's actually not chaotic. What's chaotic is what the United States is proposing to do. How do you do the domicility test? That's actually chaotic. It's not chaotic at all, in fact.
Oh wait. The person someone is saying that the domicility test should be part of the 14th Amendment.
Well, there was a moment where Jackson was asking, how do you determine allegiance, not allegiance. His answer on allegiance I thought was fine. But how do you determine his allegiance, domicility, etc.? Do you go to the hospital?
Oh yeah. She was asking how they would work it out.
Yeah. I mean, it was you would essentially be creating stateless babies, as Patty and Andre said, based off of the tests that they're arguing. I think part of the reason why people have issues is they have their political, like Trent's talking about, like policy and economics. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about legal tests. And based off of what he was arguing, the legal test makes no sense. And then what do you do? And he's like, they have computers where they do this thing. Again, I'll ask again. What is the citizenship of somebody who is in the United States for 10 years
and they have what is a citizen of their child? They've been in the United States for 8 years. They're in a community. They pay taxes, et cetera, and they're domiciled here. And then the mom gets pregnant. What is the citizenship of the child? He can answer it.
Under whose test?
Under his test, under the domicility test, under the government's test.
Oh, they'll say not an American citizen because at least one of the parents isn't lawfully present. That's what they would say.
But they didn't. But they're domiciled here. I'm saying under the domicility test.
Yeah, but he's saying that if you are unlawfully present in the United States, then you are necessarily not domiciled. That's what he would say.
Yeah, it didn't make sense based off of his reading of Kim Ark. That's the problem. The domicility test was based off of the court's opinion in Kim Ark. They were here for 20 years. They naturalized because the Chinese exclusion. I think there was also another control act in the mid-70s. They were not diplomats. They had a business. They lived in the city and county of San Francisco. So the boy was a citizen. Based off of their test, he wouldn't. Based off what you just said, he wouldn't have been. I don't know. My head is spinning.
Sauer also said that it wouldn't matter if the state's trying to figure out if the newborn child is a citizen got it wrong because the parents would be able to challenge it on the back end. That's what he said. So if a kid's declared not a citizen of the United States and the parents think that the government got it wrong, they could simply just file a lawsuit to check that conclusion, and they could fix it. That's what Sauer suggested. But of course, all the stuff that happens to the kid time, you don't care about.
If I could say something, I agree with Ben and Hurricane that the argument that Trump or the Trump administration is being for doesn't make a lot of sense. I will agree with that. We need to have amnesty in this country for people that are here undocumented, but Congress does need to pass legislation that prevents the I don't like the term anchor baby, but I don't have a better term than that. The anchor baby problem and the fact that people come here pregnant just to have a baby to gain citizenship. It's to me, I didn't realize what a problem it was until I was down.
Tell us, how big of a problem is it? Put some numbers on it. How big of a problem is it?
It is. There was a point in 2023 where there were more in some hospitals, not every hospital. And this is down here. This is not. I'm not talking about the entire United States, but I'm talking about the border of Texas. But in particular, there's a hospital in Mission, which is down Bryan, which is the street that the border crossing is on that you guys saw a lot. And there were more undocumented mothers having babies or in those rooms, taking up rooms, than there were citizens. They had to move citizens in different hospitals. And again, this was at the height of, when we're having the crisis under Biden in 2023. So, it's calmed down now, but it would make a lot of sense to make legislation that prevents that type of thing from happening. But we also have to just,
but how would changing? No, but you just close the border. That's not. So wait a minute. So we need to change the 14th Amendment because of an 18-month overrun of South Texas hospitals?
Well,
that doesn't make any sense.
No, so the border enforcement has changed. It's not the problem it was.
Wait, Trent, just one quick question, because you're doing the thing.
What thing?
Where you tell a half truth and a half lie and you try to sell it to us as the truth. These undocumented women that you claim were giving birth to babies in the hospitals, were they in the United States for the sole purpose of having their kid born in the United States? or were they in the United States for another reason?
Some of them were in the United States for the sole purpose.
How do you know this? How do you know this?
How do you prove your intent?
Now, how do you know this, Trent? How do you know it?
Because it's a common occurrence on the
I'm not an idiot. Tell me how you know that these so-called undocumented women who just hopped across the border from Mexico to Texas hopped over the border so that they could have their babies in the United States. Tell me.
Because it's a common, very well known. You don't have to. It's okay if I'm not here to argue with you. You can ask Marshall. There are pictures of it. You know, it was a very common occurrence for women to come over pregnant, cross the river, especially when it's low in the summer, because they can walk across, and to have a child because it would gain citizenship. It's not something that doesn't happen. Most mothers.
Sir, great. So, hold on. I accept, for the sake of argument, or conversation, that it was a common occurrence in Texas. Can you tell me if Texas counted these women who were hopscotching across the border to have babies in Texas? Were they quantified? You know, so that the state of Texas could put a headshot on it, so that people could understand the gravity of the claimed problem.
I don't know if during that period in time, but I can go back and there are articles back from 2006.
I'm not asking for articles written by liars. I'm asking for data collected in good faith. That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, there's no data on that.
Exactly, there isn't. And you know what else there's no data to support?
Yeah.
The claim that the anchor baby problem in the United States is so big that it's fucking the United States up. That's the claim that Sauer made today in front of the Supreme Court. But hold on. But when asked for evidence to support the claim, he had none. Nothing. The only evidence that he tried to give the Supreme Court was a vague reference to Chinese media.
That was insane.
Yeah, that's
media
insane.
from motherfucking China. The China that you say is trying to bring down the United States.
I've never said that.
That's the evidence that Sauer gave today. And by the way, it's the same evidence that people supporting the administration's position presented to the Senate Judiciary Committee when it had its hearing on the Birthright Citizenship Executive Order several weeks ago. I don't know if you listened to that. I did. It was over 2 hours long because I'm actually interested in this. They gave the same evidence, vague references to Chinese media. That's the only evidence they had.
I'll grant you that, and you know you don't have to take what I'm saying as gospel, but you know obviously I'm around healthcare a lot, and it's been a significant problem.
How much around healthcare a lot? You work for a car manufacturer.
There are people in my family that.
Sir, you're not around healthcare a lot. Sorry. If that were the case, then I'm a motherfucking healthcare professional given my family tree.
Okay, that's fine. It's neither here nor there. I just put an article.
Then don't say you're around healthcare because you're not.
Oh, that's fine. I just put an article in the chat from 2006 from the Houston Chronicle.
Wait a second. 2006?
My man, can I finish what I'm saying? You mind if I finish
It's
what I'm
his
saying?
birthday. Please stop yanking his chain.
Listen, I do talk to a lot of healthcare officials, and what I'm trying to say is until I moved down here, I didn't recognize and I didn't give the weight to the problem and recognize what a big problem it was. And you know, it's just, even though I lived in Houston and I thought I knew what was happening down here, I didn't recognize what a strain that it was putting on the facilities down here and how big of a problem it was. Now, the 300,000 to 400,000 births, to undocumented, those are not all that people have talked about, especially on the right. Those are not all anchor babies, right? But there is
there is a solution to this problem. It is a lot better now that the border is closed. But if we would grant amnesty to these folks so that they could pay taxes, and I'm saying this for healthcare reasons, because our healthcare is out of control. If we would grant amnesty so these folks can pay taxes into the system that are already here, and tighten up laws and modernize them so that to prevent things in the future, I think it would be a good thing. I'll end right there.
Hurricane, can I speak, please?
What you mean, Hurricane? Can you speak?
Oh, sorry. I'm a moderator. Sorry.
Hey, Miss Fifi. No. But I do want to hear from you, Odie. This is his opinion. I would like to hear somebody give their opinion, not necessarily based on his opinion. But go ahead, Odie.
I actually thought that Trent would say he's a lawyer because Trent, like I always say, is the master of every profession. He's an oil explorer, he's an oil producer, he's an immigration lawyer, he's a new industry, he's in healthcare too.
That's a
healthcare.
fact.
He just said it.
That's a fact.
He said it's in healthcare. And when queried, he said he has families. Then Hurricane retorted by saying, if that's the case, Hurricane is also a healthcare person. His father is a doctor. So, I don't get this anyway.
And over 10 cousins, let's get into it if we want to.
Even your sister.
Brag, okay?
Even your sister is a doctor too, so I forgot about that, So, but again, it is Mr. Trent. The Trent of political correctness. Hold on, let me finish. Let me finish.
Let him finish.
No, don't talk about you. I'm just saying that you've claimed to be everything. Okay, so now I understand the argument about death tourism. The arguments have been there since I was a kid. So do I support it? Do I not support it? These things can be easily changed. Go to the right way. Go to your legislature, pass the laws. Now, but there's something Hurricane said that I want us to interrogate. The very idea that people hop through the border to come and give birth in America is, that argument can be made, but it's still not the same. People just come to America through the border to get a better life. If giving birth in America is part of the better life, so be it. But what I will agree with you is that were there people who deliberately paid visa, got money and came to America to give birth to make their children citizens. I cannot deny that fact. I know plenty of people, even relations of mine, who did it. But the very funny thing, those are wealthy motherfuckers. Let me tell you, wealthy. Your hospitals were running a racket. People were paying $15,000, $13,000, $20,000, even the China, to do all those stuff. It wasn't cheap. So everybody was involved in the racket. I'm telling you, I know a girl who her job was to do that. Rent a three-bedroom in Alabama. She's my close friend. Alabama. People that were coming there were spending a minimum of $50,000 into the American economy. So while I understand the exploitation, I also understand the exploitation on the other way. Everybody, every rural hospital did it as a racket. So those are the people that I can listen to you that you're talking about. But those guys had money. So I'm neither here nor here. If you want to do something about it, great. But you can just go through the right way. Thank you very much, Hurricane. But let me end with this, Hurricane. Very soon, Hurricane, you will no longer be a citizen of the United States. Because by the time the Supreme Court agrees with Trump, you and your parents will pack your baggages and come down to Nigeria and leave. Thank you very much.
If I can, just real quick, my wife is director of operations and of a major, I don't want to say major hospital here, but a major surgical hospital of a major hospital here in South Texas. So we interact regularly with the county commissioners, the county commissioners, the county healthcare commissioners, I should say, the CEOs of these hospitals. And so again, and this is a problem that's been well documented, like in our community because of how taxing it is. The mayor Mario Relevos has talked about that. And so It's a national problem. It's patients in all of society.
It's so well documented that the only piece of evidence you can present to support your claim is a motherfucking newspaper article from 2006.
Please let him finish. Please let him finish.
Yeah, listen, I love the people here, and
It's a focus on what you're responsible.
He lies, First Lady. That's the problem. He says it's well documented, but he can't present documentation.
What can I and then?
You don't
But
have,
we can.
but you're saying it's well documented. You're lying. That's a problem.
Okay, well, I'll
If
just
it's
say.
well documented, where's the documentation? Where is it? You don't have it. I asked you.
So if you're gonna treat it like court, then you have to act like you're in court. First of all, you would need to say objection if you want to actually interrupt and add that piece to it.
No.
Yeah.
No, we're not, because you don't know the rules of evidence, ma'am, and I'm not supposed to have you playing my best.
Excuse me, I have people that work with me that also know it, okay, sir? So it doesn't always have to fall on one person.
And she knows Trent.
Oh, yeah, if I can just finish what I was saying. If you're going to win Texas, you have to win South Texas and the border. And if you don't understand why these people stopped voting Democrat and started voting Republican, this is one of those issues. You'll end up losing the Senate race.
Okay.
No one cares about that. No,
Thank you.
No one
Thank you.
cares. Yes, they get rid of presidentship, then the Democrats will win Texas. We're not talking about that. Go ahead.
And the Supreme Court battle, like you can tell by the questions that the Supreme Court's not going to overturn it. Ban actually, I think is going to be right on this one, where it's going to be basically Alito and Thomas on one side, and a whole bunch of concurrences on the other side. So yeah.
I'm not convinced of that anymore. I mean, Thomas might concur. I mean, the domicility argument, the allegiance argument, the way he was reading art, he never dealt with the statutes, the slave history. They Donald Trump and them should just stay away from the history of slavery. That was a total mess. I don't know. I really don't understand. Again, Congress can fix it. If you see it's a problem, Congress can change it. He could have included it in the Save America Act. He didn't. It's really that simple.
Yeah, I agree, and it might be 8-1, right? I do think that there will be several concurrences.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which it's whatever. But it doesn't appear to me that the Supreme Court's going to overturn. Like it says, yeah, it's that thing.
Listen, Amy Coney Barrett said, listen, I might be a white woman, I might be a handmaiden, but I got some black babies, okay? So I need to do something for them today, okay? Let me show. I do know a little bit about the blacks.
It was so offensive. I can't believe the government was making that. It was just so. It was wild because, as she rightly said, she's the best. She was the best on the history today. There were enslaved people who were illegally trafficked to the United States. They were not here legally. The 14th Amendment gave them and their descendants citizenship. Based off the government, they should not have gotten citizenship. The government's arguments today. That's a nasty, 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 anti-black, anti-Negro, anti-African American argument that the Trump administration is arguing. It's nasty. It is absolutely nasty that the Chinese boy, Wong Kim Ark, whose parents were subjects to the Emperor of China, that because they were domiciled in San Francisco, then he should have been a citizen. But based off their tests, many of you should not be citizens because your great-great-great-grandparents were here illegally and not domiciled. This is why I was telling people when this case came up, this stuff is anti-black, and they showed it to you today in real time. These are conservative Republicans. They are not here to help the Negro. It's for slaves, it's for slaves, it's for slaves. Trump said that all last week. I heard him say, it's for slaves, cool. We get to there today and we realize it can't be for slaves. Nasty.
Oh, you know what else? They also lied about the scope of the executive order. They're like, oh, we're just asking you, Supreme Court, to make sure that it applies prospectively only. What about the people who don't have passports? Or who don't have all of their birth certificate documents together? What about them? Even what about the ones who are 30 years old or older? If they want to get passports today, they'll have to fight the executive order too if they can't pass Donald Trump's test. So the idea that it's going to apply to only babies born after some date in the future is not true.
Yeah.
They're just liars.
Yeah, the Solicitor General, his response was really weak when it came to the prospective relief. And it's just really different. I mean, like, guys, Justice Jackson did a fantastic job. Like, what are you going to sit down pregnant women for depositions to prove that they're citizens? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, just like, how do you make that test work in real time? It's just something the government can answer. And then also, like, questions regarding indigenous folks here. Like, the fact that the government wasn't prepared for those inevitable questions. Just, I mean, this is what happens when you get cuts in, like, the Solicitor General's office in the DOJ and everybody leaves. Like, you don't have people who can actually even prepare you adequately for Supreme Court oral arguments. Fucking ridiculous.
I won't lie to you. I've never heard a Solicitor General I've never seen a Solicitor General unable to answer a question about how a proposed test will work on the ground. They always have an answer. It's going to be like this and like this and like this. His answer was, I don't know, but you can look at our briefs and see.
Did you come up with the... We came up with did they mention the Confederates, or that was you?
Oh, I asked about the Confederates today. I don't recall them talking about the kids of Confederates during oral argument, but...
It's an obvious question. I mean,
yeah.
The first question that was asked, I remember it was Clarence Thomas. He asked about. He said, "Does the Congress talk about immigration when they formulated the 14th Amendment?" And people who are in favor of the EO hope the answer is no, because they've never read the Congressional Globe and the Congressional Minutes. But those of us who have know that they did talk about immigration. Do you want to know why they talked about immigration? Because they wanted to make white immigrants citizens. Huh? Like, it's so bizarre. You think that a Congress in 1866, 1867, 1868 weren't looking out for white people? They were still white. They might have got rid of slavery because of the Civil War. They were still white supremacists. Of course they talked about immigration. But based off what these people were saying today, many of them wouldn't be citizens, not only the Confederates, but a lot of immigrants. People were here, quote unquote, illegally in the 19th century. It is, if you don't like immigrants, say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking. Like, it's really that simple. But you can't say, I hate when they use Black history and American history the way they were using it. This was a nasty day. I'm offended.
When it's convenient, they use it that way. When it's convenient to their argument, they use it. Any other way, any other time, they don't want it taught in schools, etc., etc.
Change, Shame. Ooh. Wait a minute, BT came to stage. What you come on stage for, BT?
BT came to tell us that the 14th Amendment was home before the
invited me on stage.
Oh, who's GOAT?
No invite.
There's no one on stage by that name.
BT, did you hear the arguments today?
No, I only heard like 5 minutes of it.
Okay.
Can y'all replay it? You had the clips.
3 hours.
Shades of
I'm mad. I wasn't here for it, but yeah,
You know, you have a highlight reel.
No, we don't.
He was just right here listening. He was just saying it. How embarrassing it was and what their arguments were based on. You weren't listening.
You can listen to it. It's all over the internet, but I'll give you a quick rundown. So part of what they were arguing for why illegal immigrants, why their kids should not be citizens, is because they're not domiciled here and they don't have allegiance to the country. But earlier, before they got to that part, which was really the meat of it, they were talking about slavery, which was odd because many enslaved persons were also here illegally. They weren't domiciled here, or they didn't choose domicile, and also had no allegiance. And so the argument, they started off by saying it was like, sorry?
It was an ad-lib.
No, that's fine. Now I was saying, and so the problem was when you do that, it was for the slaves thing. When you get to what the test for whether or not someone should be a citizen, many of the enslaved and their ancestors would not qualify, and the immigrants would. That's why it was a nasty argument. Many of y'all's ancestors got here after 1808, or 1808. And you're now Black American Negro, and you're on censuses in 1870, and all the things that people online tell you to look at. You derive from people who got here illegally, and who didn't have allegiance and weren't domiciled legally. Based on what the Trump administration argued today, you and your ancestors should not be citizens, huh? That's what we learned today. But Wong Kim Ark, should be a citizen because his Chinese citizen parents, who were subject to the Emperor of China, they were properly domiciled here. Many illegal people were here illegally. I mean, many enslaved people were here illegally.
Did they talk about, like, I'm reading stuff, did they talk about, like, the justification had anything to do with, like, national security and the CCP and birth anchor babies?
They talked, it was a little hint there, here or there about that, just a little hint.
So can I explain that?
I was going to quickly say that the EO doesn't contemplate national security.
I'm going to get drowned out. It's all
But
I was just responding to your remark. Like, the EO doesn't contemplate national security. If anything, it has more to do with public charges and stuff like that more than it does with, like, national security.
So if you were black, based on the conversation here, this word illegal, which became real popular, in the last election here, illegal. Unlawful is a different word. Illegal, this idea that, enslaved people were here illegally.
Yeah, some were.
So, with today's understanding of the word illegal, and this is where the semantics and the BS just continues.
Well, semantics matters for law.
This is where the BS continues.
Not BS.
Bro, why can't I finish a thought without being interrupted, man?
Because I want to.
I haven't even got It's so brilliant up in here. I mean, damn, I thought you wanted to have a real conversation. You just wanted to
echo you though, for real, sweet, but it don't matter.
That's okay, man. I went nice and
Chinese
calm.
life don't matter. Like the whole
I
case
put it
was
as a
involved with CCP, but forget it.
Between unlawful and illegal.
Go ahead, got it.
I'm not speaking.
No, you can though, right?
mean, Sweet, can you help me?
I don't know why I still give hope that there may be a dialogue in there one day. But go ahead, go. You got.
What's the distinction? What's the distinction between unlawful and illegal in this God? Like there may be a distinction. I'm just not aware of it.
They used it today. Go back and listen. They used the word unlawful. Go back and listen, bro. You'll find.
That's not the question.
I didn't know there was a question. There wasn't no question at all. What do you mean it's not the question?
No.
There was no question on the table.
He wasn't paying attention.
There was an attempt to make a statement. That's all it was.
He said, what's the difference between? That's
Go ahead, go.
He wasn't paying attention.
We
Repeat.
can't have no dialogue. I can't even let nobody finish a thought.
So anyway, my point was, you said that the reason why I brought you up is because you seem to be questioning whether or not slaves were here unlawfully. And they were.
You don't know what I was going to bring. I ain't said that yet. It wasn't me. I was saying,
Oh my God.
you brought me up because you thought you know
Y'all just stay on me. Go ahead, Sweet. One mic on.
Hey, see how you got to handle goat, and then you might get the mic a little bit.
Go ahead.
So, again, illegal, and this whole idea of illegal. So, what came out in today, what came out was the idea of what was considered legal, who was considered lawful, who was even considered a citizen, will always be the conversation no matter what the Supreme Court decides today, tomorrow, whatever. So the idea of who was even considered a citizen, while it wasn't legal, according to Goat here, to be, you could be a slave and be here illegally. So damn, you breaking the law. You over here enslaved and breaking the law. Damn. Like, shit, talk about can't win for losing. You're going to me. I mean, damn, because the reality was, just like you drink from certain fountains, it wasn't lawful or legal to drink from certain fountains at one point. So let's just understand this evolution of this, what's legal and what's lawful in this land called the United States of America was completely at the whim of whoever the hell was coming from this high moral ground of, are you even...
God blocked it.
What happened?
God blocked it.
Wait, why?
No. I think it was him. It's not us. Nobody dropped them.
No, I didn't.
He just been telling me he said somebody did.
I was going to explain the trafficking part in the 1808. Y'all gotta let the dummy. Sometimes, if I brought the dummy up for a reason.
It was bad, man. It was bad.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't bad because in his ignorance, I was going to explain the relation to domicility and the 1808 law. Not about being a slave breaking the law, about whether or not they were legally here. And many weren't legally here.
You know what it is? Because of your particular endowment,
I have 3 children and many others want to get on it because of that endowment.
No, I was like,
that endowment gives me all types of citizenship.
No, it's not that. No, because of your particular endowment, you find it much more easier to teach, to impart knowledge than
To dummies.
some
Yes.
other people.
Yes. He was almost done because he was repeating himself, but his point was he didn't know what he was saying. Talking about ACB's point about enslaved persons, their domicility and their allegiance. But if you guys,
Go, am I audible? Because I have my Bluetooth headset in.
yeah, we can.
Man, are you able to hear me, man?
Yes.
Okay, so what you just educated me on, you even might say you professed it, if you will. Would that be what led up to them even talking about that? And that's one. Second, so they're saying even though we've been here longer than them, because some of our ancestors were here to lead, and even if they popped in 1920 and now they are more American than us, and thus spread or
I'm trying to get around.
Cracking up a little bit.
Damn.
Let me answer the first one while you get better reception. So it came up because he was making the argument about being in the United States legally, and the children of people here legally should be the ones to get citizenship. And then Amy Coney Barrett brought up the point that, you guys have been talking about slavery, but were they always here legally? Where were they domiciled? Did they have allegiance to the United States? And the answer would be, in many cases, no. And yet they were making the argument that them, when they became free in 1865, and their children, more to the point, were citizens. And so that's why she was making the claim that the domicility argument and allegiance argument doesn't make any sense. And related to that, they didn't bring up dual citizenship. So she said, for example, when people were snatched up from somewhere else, they still had allegiance to somewhere else. And they were enslaved. They were snatched up. So you come, you a Fula boy from Togo, and you get snatched up, and they put you in Walterboro, South Carolina. You're legally domiciled in the United States and have allegiance to the U.S. so that your children and grandchildren become citizens? This doesn't make any sense. And then I added on to it. Men wanted to run away, get the fuck out of the United States. Wanted to go to the Caribbean, wanted to go back to Africa, wanted to go to Europe, wanted to go to Canada. Some of them fought the United States in the Confederacy, in the War of 1812, in the American Revolutionary War, in the Tripoli Wars. The Tripoli was naval, counted most of it. And then black people fought against them. So it was all over the place. It was really offensive to black Americans. But many people on your side on this particular issue will only hear the anti-immigrant stuff and won't hear how it was really offensive to the Negro. Without price citizenship, free of domicility, at least, etc., what else would we have to situate the Negro as a citizen? That's why America had birthright citizenship. It's a mess. But y'all keep falling behind conservative Republicans and black people.
And it was done, and I forgot which justice, I think it was Justice Jackson who raised this point. It was done so that Congress would not all of a sudden go back and try to change it. The language was very clear. Another thing, too, the government's argument regarding domicility was very circular. It was like, what's domicility? It was like allegiance. Okay, what's allegiance? It's domicility. Like, it was just kind of like, I don't, like it seemed like it was couched in nothing, which is like, Justice Sotomayor, I think, raised the question. I think Gorsuch had maybe hinted to it if he didn't say it explicitly, but some of the justices just were confused about that kind of like what domicility needed to the authority and how that's even related to, jurisdiction, subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
Just a small but important point. Justice Jackson said that the history shows that citizenship laws was placed in the 14th Amendment to put it beyond the reach of not only legislators, but also executive officials, just beyond the reach of any government official at all. They didn't want that question to be decided by anybody who could exercise power over anybody else, because they wanted to make sure that the formerly enslaved people were fine and that they wouldn't have to litigate questions about their citizenship ever again, or just anybody else who had been previously denied citizenship. They just didn't want people to have to litigate the question again, which is why it was there. It wasn't just legislators, but also executive branch officials too.
Where was Wong Kim Ark's parents' allegiance?
I think, wasn't it China?
So so then the domicility, I don't know, what kind of relationship is that? A tautological one, or I don't know, is one a synecdoche or a metonym? I don't even know what the relationship is.
So I can tell you, I think domicility enters the conversation this way. They believe that jurisdiction requires a certain amount of allegiance from the person. And the way to demonstrate that you have the requisite amount of allegiance is to be domiciled in the United States permanently, I suppose.
Right. So then my point is,
works.
so the point then is, then Wong Kim Ark's parents, they weren't domiciled then. They didn't have allegiance to the U.S. That's what I'm saying. You can't use one as a proxy or an extension of the, I don't know, maybe they're in a Mobius strip type relationship or Europe work relationship. I don't know how to describe it. But their allegiance was to China.
Agreed.
But they were domiciled in the U.S. And if they're using if they're saying domicility and allegiance are extensions, are sort of mutually constitutive. There you go. Well, that wouldn't be mutually constitutive, but one is constitutive of the other. Let's say that.
Yeah.
It didn't work in the Kim Ark case. They allegiance was to China.
They couldn't decide. So Sauer couldn't decide whether, from what I recall, he couldn't decide whether he wanted the Supreme Court to overrule Wong Kim Ark or leave it alone, because he at one time said leave Wong Kim Ark alone and distinguish it, and then another time, or many other times, he seemed to be arguing against the holding of Wong Kim Ark. So that's another reason they were confused. They sounded confusing to me. I couldn't tell. He didn't sound as if he knew what he wanted or how to get where he wanted to go.
And shout out to Cecilia for saying the fact that the government said do not overrule Kim Ark, like that's fatal to their argument, because that's really why folks are there. And so you're absolutely right, Hurricane. Like just the unwillingness to say that, but basically saying like or specifically to her point, don't overrule it. That basically is the case.
But their argument requires overruling of Wong Kim Ark. You can't keep Wong Kim Ark and uphold the executive order. You can't. I don't think you can. You would have
He
to
was
throw it.
arguing, I don't know if you caught this part. He was actually arguing that we have misinterpreted Wong Kim Ark. He tried to make the claim that Wong Kim Ark is on their side, because at one point, remember, Gorsuch was like, I don't think you want to use Wong Kim Ark. He was like, well, actually, we kind of do, because, and that's why he kept going to domicility, because of his domicility. And then we had a discussion when you guys came in here, Neoliberal and I did, on, is he suggesting that the domicility was part of the holding, or it was dicta? I couldn't tell what he was doing. It was a total mess.
It was very messy, but within that mess there is a clear argument. I don't think it's a winning argument. Clear argument. If you move away from allegiance whatsoever, allegiance is a losing argument. But if you consider domicility, and the government's position would be that Wong Kim Ark should be read as the parents' domicility was part of the dicta, right? And we should read Wong Kim Ark as parents' domicility should be included in the test, and in their reading, Wong Kim Ark does exactly that.
But then, okay, I see what you're doing. You're trying to coffee bean in this shit. I see. That's why I don't drink that coffee. But I would though. Actually, if I had a chance, I would definitely try. So I'm trying to understand. So then, how does the slave part? So they're saying slaves, even those who were here illegally, or unlawfully, shout out to Sweet, that those people were domiciled in the U.S.
Yes.
Legally domiciled.
Yes, they would say he said that in one or again, it's messy, but yeah, if he was making a cleaner argument, he would say yes.
So wait, so if I'm here for 10 years, but I'm undocumented, and me and my wife are undocumented, and we have a child, we're not legally domiciled. But an enslaved person who came illegally in 1830 from Africa or from Jamaica, robbed it, pussy clot, bum clot, yada bada, rum pum pum, that person was legally domiciled.
Well, not necessarily. That's where you run into the. This is why I don't think it's a winning argument, because now you just replaced one problem with another, because an illegal person This is why the justices were asking how you're defining domicile, right? And if domicile is on intent, right? An illegal person that made himself part or herself with a full intent to stay, right? By ordinary understanding of domicile, will be domiciled in the United States.
Why? I mean, I guess he's doing it because it's his job. This man is arguing a position that he knows. This man went to Duke undergrad, Harvard Law School, and a master's from Notre Dame. He knows full well that this doesn't make any sense.
So go too far. You do know that. Okay. Now, are you saying when you say he knows it doesn't make sense? Are you claiming that to show that you don't think he believes in what he's saying?
Correct.
I don't know that that's true.
I think he believes politically, but I don't think he believes it legally. Like, I think he believes and wants it to be the case. If he's a conservative, I can understand that. But I don't think he believes that the domicility allegiance test that he's reading in Kim, I don't think he believes that. Now, he can say that Kim was bad law, but he wasn't saying that.
Yeah, most of these people don't believe what they're saying when you talk to them privately.
Wait, that's not true.
Well, see, I don't like the internal belief argument. I don't like it.
Well, I'm just saying that the legal arguments on their merits was so full of inconsistencies. You saw one thing and another bigger problem, saw one problem, another one pops up, that he couldn't. I don't think he thinks that what he was arguing was logically and legally sound. He's too smart to know it was. Like, you really think that he thinks that Kim Wong-R case is on their side? Come on.
Ben, I have no choice. If that's what he's arguing, I just have to take it at face value.
That's fair. I agree with you on that.
Barry, can you ask the internal belief question? Why are you ask the question now? You're like, oh my God, internal belief.
He did ask you that.
Yeah.
This is how they get these billable hours. They ask a question. You spend an hour and then they ask why you're discussing it. You spend another hour and you forget they were the ones that did it. Double billable hours. It's nasty work.
Do you mind if I went and got some of your data for Hurricane? Do you mind? I'm going to post it in the chat so you can see it, Hurricane. And I'm going to explain it a little because it's actually very interesting. When he sent it to me, I was surprised. So it's there in the chat now. Last year, Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, put in an executive order that all hospitals require to report undocumented versus regular citizens payers so that they could see the payer mix. Previously, surprisingly to me, this is not recorded. There's a reason why this wasn't recorded. The reason why it wasn't recorded is in a lot of these articles go back to 2006. I was like, why is 2006 keep popping up? Carol Keaton Strayhorn, by the way, y'all don't think I'm crazy, but I actually did help her campaign when I think 03 when she ran for governor. I might be off on the year, but Carol Keaton Strayhorn was great. She was comptroller of the state of Texas. Very smart lady. She did a study on undocumented versus Texas citizens. And the study back in 2006 showed that immigrants were a net benefit to the state. So therefore, the Texas conservative time Bush was coming out of office, I think Perry is in office, let it go and never brought it back up. Now, with the executive summary that I just put in the chat, it does not break out pregnancy. I asked, it doesn't break out pregnancy, but it takes all payers. Greg Abbott asked for the data. You can see from fiscal year 2024 to 2025, it was just released 2 months ago, and it shows the $1 billion hit to the state in providing for healthcare. Now, that's not, to be fair, that's not taken into account. I think I've seen some numbers as high as $4 billion in taxes and revenue that undocumented generated for the state.
But hey, Trey, I have one or two questions for you because your story is way too long. You posted summary. What is this thing called? Executive order data summary.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the types of visit.
Yep.
There are 5 types of visits. The last one is called total visits and costs not legally present. Can you explain what that type of visit is to me?
I don't know.
You know, the last one is all of them combined.
That's what I thought. That's what it sounds like to me.
Total cost of visits, that is all of them combined, all the undocumented visits types combined.
That's not what Ban is saying.
No, that is. That's all. I added them up. 4 rows. All of them combined is the 5th row.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all of them combined is the 5th row.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what does this tell us about the burden imposed on Texas by undocumented women giving birth to children in Texas?
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't break out first.
Okay.
Yeah. But in totality, this is taking all the visits. That's what equals the billion. It's not $1.5 billion. It's $1.05 billion. So that's the $1 billion number.
But this doesn't show. This doesn't show what portion of the financial burden is created by the unlawfully present people, does it?
No, it does show. No, it does show unlawfully present people. Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. Where is it?
Because this is just this is total business and costs, not legally present. That number, that $1,050,642,000 number, that number right there is to the state costs.
That burden is created solely by people who are unlawfully present in the United States?
In Texas, yes.
But okay, Ben, is that how you're reading it too?
I don't understand it because on it the first and third rows. Hold on, let me go back to it. The first and third rows. Oh shoot, I just lost it. The first and third rows see Medicaid and CHIP. And total visits and costs, but Medicaid and CHIP, undocumented illegal shouldn't be getting. So I don't get it.
Yeah,
I'm stuck on that.
I would have to ask because I'll see if I can get a clearer explanation. But the $1 billion.
Hold on, Trent. So listen. So let me tell you what I did. I didn't want to say what Bam was saying because I didn't want you to tell me I was being combative and an asshole and all that stuff. But when I read the shit, it didn't say what you say it said. So I asked you questions so that you could expose yourself. You didn't want to expose yourself, so Bam joined the conference to expose your ass. That's the problem. This executive order does not tell me what you claim it tells me and tells you. It doesn't.
The what it says is, in the article that this came out of from the commission, says that Texas spent more than $1 billion on healthcare for undocumented immigrants in 2025.
I don't care what some newspaper article says. I want access to the data, and I want to know how the data was used. And I'm telling you that when I read this executive summary, it doesn't tell me what you say it says. So I don't know. But I might be wrong because numbers aren't really my thing. But
let me add on here. This where Trent, you may be correct. This is where the numbers make sense. If they're suggesting that these are state Medicaid and S-chip funds, and that could possibly be the case, but I don't see. Damn, y'all just lost it again. see it say S chip, so maybe that's what it means. That being said, I mean, all due respect, it's only $1 billion. How much do illegal undocumented contribute to the economy? I know there's a bunch of people building in South Texas who are cruddy because they put down some foundation and can't build the houses.
That is true. And so that number I have to go back and look for now. But I believe in 2006, when Carol Keaton Strayhorn did the study, they were contributing between $4 and $5 billion in sales and state income tax. Well, they don't pay income tax, but sales, state taxes. So it was a net positive on that. Now, healthcare isn't the totality, because you got to take in police force and some other services in order to count how much illegal immigration is costing. But it would lean to that in Texas, it's a net benefit to the. Last thing I'll say, because I'll be here tonight once Trump started. This leads to Milton Friedman ban. I think you'll like this. I think it was 1978 or 79 when he talked about immigration net positive to the economy as long as you don't give them benefits. And as soon as you start giving them benefits, that's when you run into a problem.
Cato did a nationwide study. I don't see that statewide it would be much different. It's billions of dollars since 1994 in net benefits to the United States.
To the state, it's probably a net positive. Now, and we won't get all into the immigration conversation. There's some net negatives to you as an American citizen, but to the state and the state coffers, it's probably a net positive.
I mean, again, if we're talking about healthcare costs and what's driving it, it's definitely not illegals getting service and illegals getting babies delivered. I mean, you can look at the cost of health.
That's a fact. That everybody I've talked to says that's a fact.
Well, it's a factor because when you deliver a baby, the obstetrician comes in, stands there, somebody pulls up, and they charge you $8,000 for a 20-minute.
It could be as much as $40,000.
Well, I'm specifically talking about the delivery itself. Maybe, I mean,
Count for everything? If you account for everything?
no. Go up to be more than that. I'm just talking about the actual delivery. Like, why is pricing never the issue? So you're saying we get rid of that 300,000 anchor babies, the cost of my health care and insurance is going to go down? Absolutely not. It'll probably go up because the economy will contract.
Yeah, interesting take, guy.
Now, Ben, and he has a point on the cost of healthcare. He absolutely has a point on that, and I actually agree with that to a certain extent.
What would you guys do with the money if it didn't go there? Just curious.
Well, one problem with the cost is litigation. The amount of insurance that these doctors have to carry to compete with the litigation if somebody dies or is injured in surgeries is insane. So tort reform.
How's that even connected?
How's that connected?
I knew you were a Republican, but I didn't know you were such a Republican. You think the cost of healthcare is being driven by insurance liability costs? That's great.
I'm curious, where do you guys think the money goes?
You know why? You're like a Republican from you're like a Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Sununu Republican of 2006.
Nothing wrong with that.
I am, baby. I told you that. No, but in all seriousness,
McCain was my first favorite politician back in 2000, the McCain Express. But no, the tort reform, if you remember our man John Edwards, like, what was that, 07? There is a problem with the amount of insurance that these doctors have to carry. Now, they also do make well over $500,000 a year. So, you know, there's you got to pay the cost to be the boss. But there's multiple factors in it. I'm not trying to say that insurance alone is the problem, but it's not the insurance, it's the litigation. I'm not saying that alone is the problem, but it is part of the problem.
Definitely a factor that goes into it and accumulates with everything else. Yep. It's crazy because Democrats just think that these things don't affect anything if they don't, you know what I mean? Like, oh no, that's not preposterous. That's not. So what would you do with that extra money if you were the government? It just vanishes? Doesn't attribute to anything? No, I don't think so.
What extra money? What? Extra money that is not there anymore? What do you mean?
I'm not repeating myself.
Oh, that's weird.
The government thing. I don't know.
It's so simple to understand. Like, if you're not using it for that, does it just vanish, or can you use it for something else, right, Neil? So basic.
What is it?
Yo, Neil, if you don't pay your rent, you don't have to pay your rent, and you have that extra money. What can you do with that money? Does it just vanish? You don't make that money anymore? That money doesn't go to your bank account anymore every month?
I'm asking what extra money you're talking about.
Oh my God, I thought you were neoliberal. What the hell?
I am?
Yo, Trent, at least Trent understands. At least Trent understands me, okay? That's all I need.
I'm just not following the conversation.
No, I don't.
Okay, Trent, so, all right, so what did you put the 100 sign to for me when I was speaking? What did you resonate with?
The very first part when you said about you think that this money just goes nowhere, but then when you said to the government, that's where I'm like, wait.
No. All right, so I'm just saying, like, whatever entity's in charge of dispersing these funds, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it doesn't go to one source, where would it go, right? Where would you put it? It just vanish and thin it, right? So whoever disperses these funds, like, where would it go if that weren't a cost that they would have to, you know what I mean, supply funds to? Where would it go?
Yeah, I think the point is you might not have the funds to disperse. So you have to see what do those people contribute to the economy. So if they're not contributing to the economy, the funds there that they're dispersing on, say, having a child, might not be there. That's the dynamism of economies.
So when they first show up, they're not automatically contributing to the economy immediately as soon as they show up here. So funds do have to be from somewhere.
That's actually not true. So in South Texas. So
wait, hold on. Ben, do you understand what I'm saying, though?
Yes, I know what you're saying.
Okay, all right.
I get it. But that's not how the economy works. You show up, then you get the dollar out. That's also true when you were born, if you were born a citizen. When you first showed up.
Yes, I was.
Okay. When you first showed up, you also weren't contributing. That's not how things
work. But these are adults, though.
I know. So
and I wasn't contributing, but my paying father and my work. Hold on, that's what I'm saying. But hold on, but Ben, let me work with you. My father and my mother work. I don't contribute, but they contribute for me. So we, the American people, are their fathers.
I'm getting it. When the men show up in South Texas, they are working. We're talking about South Texas.
Oh yeah. Pick some tomatoes for me or something. I get it. I understand.
No. They build that. They boom the economy through like real estate, the housing market.
Right, through legal practices of paying minimum. You know what I'm saying? Not paying by the book. Then all of a sudden you have all these developments that were... No, come on, it's not a secret, man. It's not a secret.
What do you mean?
It's not a secret, man. Ben, my father... No, I'm very chill. Wait, hold on a second. Stop yelling. Relax. Relax.
When you say they're paying, you said not by the book. What do you mean?
Okay, I'm going to tell you what I mean, right? I don't know if you have any experience with, like, construction.
I've never owned a construction company. What did you mean?
No. You don't have to own a construction company.
What did you mean by the book?
Why are you interrupting? Can you relax, sir? Can you show, like, some type of, like, control over...
Fucking ignorant dumb. Shut the fuck up. Your inability to have a conversation is insane.
You are so stupid.
So, if
I never see that in real life. What would you do?
You are an idiot.
And then you go to jail.
You are like you. You want to be smart, but you're not. You don't show emotional intelligence. I'm sorry. That a person younger than you got you that irritated to where you had to curse me out. You know you can't speak to me like that in real life. Enjoy this application and the buttons. Enjoy it, man.
Watch this.
Enjoy it. Yeah, enjoy it. Go ahead. Whatever you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. Enjoy. Enjoy. Indulge yourself. That's why your life is not better than mine. I'm sorry.
What would happen in real life?
In real life, you will not raise your voice at me.
Why? What would
I will laugh at your face and I will tell you, let's compare lives. Let's compare living status. Let's compare finances. Let's compare manhood. And you will fucking crumble to my feet. That's what real life is all about. But since you hide behind this app, you can do whatever you want, Mr. Moderator. And then your little fucking crowd can fucking cheer for you because they are inadequate. And they know that. That's why they fucking try to ridicule me in the chat. It's okay.
Okay.
I'm sure of myself. Press that button. Press that button.
No, hang on, bro. Listen, I get that. Ben makes well over $1,000 a year. These are well established.
It's fine.
Yeah. I could run my fucking. I could pull my dick out too. Don't worry about it.
No.
I can pull my dick out. Am I really?
Yeah, we don't
have to go there, right? So why the fuck does he have to
hold
be?
on, man.
First of all, you're contradicting yourself, man.
What?
Telling me, oh, don't interrupt me, don't raise your voice, blah blah blah.
Wait, so you were correct on that. We do have a underpaying of wages for undocumented workers, especially when it comes to construction. And it's not just South Texas, it's actually across the entire southern United States. But so yes, they do affect, that's why I said it may not be good for the average citizen, especially in the working class, especially the blue collar class. Illegal and undocumented immigration affects your labor, it brings down your wages, it makes you less valuable. But to the state and the state's coffers, it is actually probably a net positive. But Miriam put in the chat that
statement.
Hey, my man, come on. Miriam put in the chat that in 2022, Texas generated $4.9 billion from taxes. That's about the numbers that I had, so I agree with that. So I don't think if we look down at a net benefit to the state, and we're seeing to Van's point in South Texas right now, that immigration has been a net positive, and as these people have been pushed out, and we have decreased on the crossings of the border, this area is actually seeing some decline for the first time.
Okay, so that might be a correct particular statement about some very particular industry. As a general statement, that is incorrect about blue-collar work. Immigrants are not net burden on employment either, specifically native-born employment. Native-born employment wages actually improve with immigration, including illegal immigration. They don't net.
I can tell you that
particular.
We're seeing it now. They don't.
Yeah, I'm fine. You can make the caveats and exceptions. That's fine. But it's a general statement. What I said is true. What you said is wrong on a general statement.
No.
If you want to make it particular,
first of all,
to some industry and some locate, that's fine.
You don't live here. Texas is the second
largest. That's why I said if you want to make it about some particular locale or specific industry, that is fine.
But it's happening across the United States. Okay?
Okay, across the United States,
it's happening in Georgia. It's happening all over.
Give me a study that says on net that immigration on net in the United States, not particular industries, is net negative.
You don't need a study.
Wages.
Neoliberal needs a study because he's not in the United States, so he's going off of what he has.
I need you to go get a measure
I just want to address.
He needs a study because he's not here. I'm just being fair to Neo.
I need it from Trent. Yes, I need that study from you.
Yeah, no, but you don't.
Yeah, but Trent, you understand? Like, don't even listen to his joke. Like, you understand? Like, he's not here, so you don't.
Yeah. There are multiple industries right now, especially in agriculture and in construction, which are paying higher wages, much higher wages in trade.
I don't care about narratives. Study.
It's not a narrative.
It is. It's literally.
Neo only thinks in studies. You have to speak to him on studies.
Yes, that's
even if they're false.
Only.
Yeah. Look, you don't need a study to know.
He only regurgitates studies. That's the problem.
Correct.
Yeah, you don't need a study to know that if there is more labor, right, and you have to Ban's point, relatively the same amount of demand. But if there is more labor, it brings down the wage. What is happening down here in South Texas isn't necessarily that there's a worker shortage. It's just that you now have to pay more for these workers. And there are some people here that are happy because now as a painter, they can make $15, $16, $17 an hour. Now as a carpenter, they can demand $22, $23, $24 an hour. Where these jobs previously were around 13 to 15, right? And so what's happened is it's raised the wages. And that's why I'm saying for the average person, for the average American, especially in the blue collar workforce, and this goes into factories and automotive factories in Georgia and Tennessee and other places, when you have less labor available, it raises the wage of that labor, and it is probably for you a net positive as an American, but not necessarily for your state. I'll land right.
Again, studies show the opposite. Native
that's all he
born wages actually increase with immigration net nationally. I agree, Trent, that there might be specific industries, specific locales, and specific sectors that don't see that relationship. But again, this is why Trump policies have created a native-born workers' wage decreases or growth decreases, and in some places actual decreases rather than the opposite.
So what happened during the last administration when New York got, you know what happened in New York, right? Or you want me to tell you that the person that actually works there, that actually works there and actually sees the effects?
No, but happened on with what? Wages, employment, what? You have to give the thing.
So work, wages, safety, overall living, like going outside and seeing it look like Beirut.
When? In what years?
In the last 3 years.
It looked like Beirut.
Actually, in the last 3 years.
I think 2020 was the worst year in New York.
So I can speak on from, But if you just want to look at the last 4 years, the last 3 years, 4 years, it's been terrible. It looks crazy. These people are living in hotels paid by who? I don't fucking know, right? We don't know. This shit just fucking appears.
What does that have to do with the labor market? They're talking about labor markets.
Yeah, so of course, like the Democrats want to, and the business owners want cheap labor, right? Cheap fucking labor.
Well, I think Americans want cheap labor because they want cheap costs. That's why we import a lot of shit from China.
Right.
Yeah, so
the problem with that is, what you said?
That's an American problem. It's not a Democrat. Oh,
so if you had a country, right? If you had bro, why you gotta yell? I mean, I'm gonna just say that you're passionate. I'm gonna just say that you're passionate. It's not a problem. No, you're passionate.
But what you're saying, Republicans don't like Walmart?
Oh yeah, we love Walmart.
Oh, you're a Republican. I thought you were just a Trump guy.
No, but see, that's the problem. I'm not a fan of nobody. I'm a Republican because I resonate with what it means to have a conservative mind, be fiscally responsible, you know what I'm saying? Like, have borders because they exist for a reason.
I got you. So, what's the point? So, the original point, to go back to where we are, because you guys moved it, was if you remove the illegals for the hospital stuff, right? I was basically making the claim they were paying for it because of their contributions to the economy. All the other stuff you guys were talking about had nothing to do with the conversation. So you were saying, oh, well, the money can go elsewhere. I'm saying if they're not here, the money that you think can go elsewhere won't be here.
Where did the money in Minnesota? How did that pop up? The fraud that was occurring. Where did that money come from?
What?
Where did the money? I'm giving an example. Where did the money come from? Where did the money come from? With the fraud, where was that money originally pulled from?
I'm answering. I think that was fraud that was perpetrated through COVID expenditures and maybe Medicaid and other social services. So that came from.
Who pays Medicaid? Who?
Man, I'm answering the question. Okay. Can you let me finish? If you cut me off one more time, I'm literally answering your question. Sound like a little bitch.
Hey, you're a bitch, faggot. Press that button. You're looking for an excuse. I'm giving it to you. Press it.
Your mother's a faggot.
Press it. Your fucking family, your whole generation, your bloodline, your future. You're a coward. Press that button. Take away from the conversation. Press that button. You know you can't fuck with me.
This is not a conversation.
Press the button, you fucking faggot.
This isn't a conversation.
Faggot. Press the button.
Please.
Listen to him.
Who pays for Medicaid, Ben?
Medicaid. I can answer. I can answer. All U.S. workers that get paychecks and payroll taxes, they pay for Medicaid.
Okay. You and I, correct?
I pay for Medicaid. Do you?
I pay for Medicaid.
And you know who else pays for Medicaid?
Illegal immigrant.
Correct. So what the fuck was your point, you dumbass?
Man, you act like you did.
Go get some fucking mofongo, dummy. Mofongo your dumb ass somewhere else. Go ahead, you want to go next? He's so stupid.
I wanted to hear him yell faggot again. Sorry.
Oh, now you're getting excited by calling people a faggot. That was crazy. Let's bring him back up. He wants you to say faggot again. Go ahead, Meow. Do you think?
Yes.
Somebody bring him back up. I can't bring him back up.
Invite him.
Why are you scared? Why you gotta bring me down when you respond to me?
I just put you down so I can get the mofongo joke out. That's why I brought you back up.
Yeah, but listen, be a man. We don't do that.
No.
We don't do that.
This is the training.
No, it ain't no training session. I can leave whenever I want. You guys won't have content. You won't have content because you're fucking monotone in your voice. Nobody wants to hear that, Neo.
According to these studies, we have a report on the United States, and I don't live there, but I am obsessed with the government of the United States because...
Shut the fuck up. You guys are pussies.
No,
shut the fuck up. Younger than you, I'm better than you.
I want you to say faggot.
Shit.
She wants you to say faggot.
Stop playing with me. Run the country for us then, man, but you're not good enough to be in government. That's why you're here on Clubhouse talking shit. We pay for the fucking Medicaid, you fucking faggot. We pay for that shit. We pay for the fucking systems and programs that bring the fucking illegal immigrants here in the right way. You fucking faggot, you ignorant bitch.
Oh,
fuck out of here. Read a book. Read a book. Read a book.
He's training an AI voice thing so he can have for people saying faggot. Oh, bring him back. We'll move him down.
Well, it's his room.
No, he got what he needed. We can move.
Oh, he got it? Okay.
Yeah, he got
I think he might need a couple more takes. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is happening? Like, I was insane. Oh, God. Oh, God, that was funny. Oh, man. The markets really think the war is coming to an end. I don't know if you guys are following the
It's green.
And oil went down to only 99, so that's good, I guess. It's still too high. And the Brent's way down to 100. So now WTI and Brent are only $1 apart, which is crazy. So maybe the Iranians really did ask for a ceasefire. Oh, I don't know. Were they attacked? Oh, no, they yesterday, right? They hit excuse me. Never mind. Air defenses just activated in Dubai 3 minutes ago. I just saw this.
Yeah, there is no basis. The market is moving the narrative is completely disconnected.
That's crazy. Mino, come back up. Mino, why? Mino black. Mino white. Mino black.
No, meow.
Well, you done? I think Neo Liberty needs a couple more takes. He coming.
Okay, now you guys can have a fully productive conversation without me. I'm just gonna be here.
Okay, you see here, we can go back to the recording because we haven't finished the oral arguments. He's just he's just doing too much.
All right, go ahead, Patty.
Yeah, we were having contact before you came in.
Mr. Chief Justice, and please the court. Ask any American what our citizenship rule is, and they'll tell you. Everyone born here is a citizen alike. That rule was enshrined in the 14th Amendment to put it in the reach of any government official to destroy. When the government tried to strip Mr. Wong Kim Ark's citizenship on largely the same grounds they raised today, this court said no. 30 years after ratification, this court held that the 14th Amendment embodies the English common law rule. Virtually everyone born on U.S. soil is subject to its jurisdiction and is a citizen. It excludes only those cloaked with a fiction of extraterritoriality because they are subject to another sovereign's jurisdiction, even when they're in the United States. A closed set of exceptions to an otherwise universal rule. My friend has now clearly said that the government is not asking you to overrule Wong Kim Ark. That is a fatal concession. Because Wong Kim Ark's controlling rule of decision precludes their parental domicile requirement. The dissent understood that, and the majority tells us 6 times in the opinion that domicile is irrelevant under common law. Lynch versus Clark was already the dominant American case on citizenship, and it held that the U.S.-born daughter of temporary visitors from Ireland who took the baby back to Ireland with them, that daughter was a U.S. citizen. Authorities, including Lincoln's Attorney General and Kent's commentaries, embraced Lynch, and Kent specifically talked about temporary sojourners' children being U.S. citizens. Justice Field said in 1884 that reflected the general understanding. That understanding was confirmed by Congress with its 1940 Act. The 14th Amendment's fixed bright line rule has contributed to the growth and thriving of our nation. It comes from text and history. It is workable and it prevents manipulation. The executive order fails on all those counts. Swaths of American laws would be rendered senseless. Thousands of American babies will immediately lose their citizenship. And if you credit the government's theory, the citizenship of millions of Americans, past, present, and future, could be called into question. All of this tells us the government's theory is wrong. I welcome the court's questions.
There are 5 exceptions to citizenship that you do accept.
Yes, depending on how many you count, Justice Thomas, how you count them.
What is the underlying rule of law that you use to connect these 5 exceptions?
Sure. So, as I just said, all of the exceptions involve situations where that U.S.-born child is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States because that extraterritoriality, the fiction of extraterritoriality, the interaction of another sovereign between the United States' jurisdiction and that person applies to the child as well as to the parent. Everyone else born in the United States is subject to the United States' jurisdiction. To answer Justice Barrett's question to my friend, that's what sets those exceptions apart from other U.S.-born persons.
We've heard a lot of talk about Wong Kim Ark, and you dismiss the use of the word domicile in it. It appears in the opinion 20 different times, and including in the question presented and in the actual legal holding. And the government doesn't want it to be overruled because it willing to rely on that particular fact in that case. Isn't it at least something to be concerned about, to say that since it's discussed 20 different times and has that significant role in the opinion that you can just dismiss it as irrelevant?
Well, Mr. Chief Justice, I think we have to look at what the controlling rule of decision is in Wong Kim Ark. Justice Gray takes pains in the majority opinion to set out his analysis. He first starts with a premise that in construing the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause, we look to the English common law. That was the rule that applied from the colonial era on, at least for the colonists and for European immigrants. He then says, look, Chief Justice Marshall tells us in the Skinner Exchange what subject to the jurisdiction means. Again, looking to the English common law. Under English common law, if you are born in the dominions of the sovereign, you owe natural allegiance. And those who are present in the dominions of the sovereign owe temporary allegiance for as long as they're present. The only exceptions, again, in common law were ambassadors, people born on foreign ships, and people who were born during periods of foreign occupation. He then gets to the government's favorite page, 693, where he says, look, we have had this rule in the United States as to citizenship, at least for white Americans, from before independence. The purpose of the 14th Amendment was to embrace that universal rule of birthright citizenship, to embrace and incorporate the common law exceptions with the single additional exception of the pre-existing exception for tribal Indians that we had in the United States, which is an analogous exception, and that's the closed set of exceptions. You can't make sense of the holding in the case without looking to the controlling rule of decision, which is the common law. And I think my friend agrees that under English common law, domicile was not relevant, and the children born to temporary visitors in the territory of the sovereign were always considered birthright citizens.
Well, Ms. Wong, I mean, everything we say strikes me as, yeah, that's the way I read it too, but then what are those 20 domicile words doing there? Like, you can, take some of them and say, I don't know, they were just summarizing the facts of the case, but not all of them. And why did they keep on, why did they sprinkle that in the opinion?
Well, I think, again, those were the stipulated facts in the case, and it's clear we have textual evidence in the majority opinion that they were simply saying this is an a fortiori application of that controlling rule that comes from the English common law. Justice Bray writes, again, after setting out the English common law rule and the exceptions, with a single additional exception for children of members of Indian tribes, that the amendment in clear words and manifest intent includes the children born within the territory of the United States of all other persons of whatever race or color domiciled within the United States. And as was pointed out earlier, the very next part of that same paragraph, he cites to Webster talking about Thrasher's case, and he says, people who are born in this country owe allegiance independently of a residence within, foreign nationals owe allegiance independently of a residence with intention to continue such residence, independently of any domiciliation, and independently of taking any oath of allegiance, which is totally contrary to both the government's theory of dual allegiance or partial allegiance into the theory of domiciliation.
I mean, I might agree with you if domicile had simply been sprinkled in the opinion, but in Wong Kim Ark, it's a long opinion, but it begins by saying, here's the question, and it ends by coming back to the question. And it says, here's the question stated at the beginning of the opinion, namely, whether a child born in the United States of parents of Chinese descent who at the time of his birth are subjects of the Emperor of China, but had a permanent domicile and residence in the United States and are there carrying on business, and he states the diplomatic exception. He says, for the reasons above stated, this court is of the opinion that the question must be answered in the affirmative. So why put domicile in? Sometimes it's hard to figure out what is the whole domicile in there. It's just something, it's something relevant that he wanted to throw in. It's like, whether a child born in the United States or parents of Chinese descent who resided at a particular address in San Francisco who attempted to enter the country at the port of San Francisco. Why put it in if it's irrelevant?
Well, Justice Alito, I'll give you two responses. The first is that, again, it was a stipulated fact. The second is that regardless of what the judgment in the case was, which again was an a fortiori application of the rule of decision, the The rule of decision in Wong Kim Ark has binding precedential effect. Even if you think that Wong Kim Ark decided based on the stipulated, follow that controlling rule of decision. And if you follow that rule, you get to the same result for people without domicile. Wong Kim Ark says 6 times in the first parts of the opinion, as well as on the page the government focuses on, that domicile is not relevant.
So on that, what do we do with the fact that after Wong Kim Ark?
Let me put on pause real quick. I got a question, right? So if they keep talking about this domicile thing, I ain't read Wong Kim Ark. I only read like little paper. So what? When they keep talking about this domicile thing, even though they weren't citizens, they were still living in the U.S., right?
Yeah, San Francisco.
So they'd still be subject to U.S. law, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They'd still be somewhat, quote unquote, some type of domiciled residence, whether they were. So I'm kind of confused where they're going with this domicile thing, because still the Constitution says what, subject to jurisdiction.
Yeah, they're not trying to overrule Wong Kim. They are saying that Wong Kim has been decided with taking the parents' domicile in account, right? So future law should clarify and take similar cases with domicile also in account, right? So adding on domicile through, like reading domicile into the Wong Kim decision, that Wong Kim was decided not because the mere jurisdiction thereof, but mere jurisdiction thereof plus domicile, right? So they're trying to convince the court that domicile is part of the Wong Kim decision.
So in that decision, did it have anything to say that said that they had to stay forever, like some type of intent to stay in the United States forever?
Well, I haven't read I have read, but I just don't remember. But the fact basis is that the Wong Kim Ark's parents, effectively, they did have a domicile in the United States. They had businesses in the United States, right? They clearly had, at the time, although they went back later to China. At the time, they had businesses. They clearly, the fact basis is that they did intend to stay in the United States.
Right. So the business would establish some type of residence, right?
I don't know actually.
Not the business even of itself, but I think it contributes to the argument for their domicility.
Yes.
That's how I understand it. So if you have a business, doesn't mean it, but if you say you have a domicile and you own a business, it contributes to the argument or to your claim. That's how I understand it.
And that's why she keeps bringing up the common law, like a just so late thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? I just wanted to like clarify certain things.
Yeah, it's again, I'm gonna have to go read it. I got stuff to do today, but I'm fat. Yeah, neoliberal, maybe you can, it's dicta in the opinion, right? It's not a holding.
Well, that's the contention. So
because if we're relying on like the common law, when it comes to common law, it's the king's protection, right?
No. I'm just saying, in the opinion, in the majority opinion, in that particular case, how essential is it? Is it dicta, or is
I just don't remember. But that's the contention.
I don't have time. I don't have time to.
What do you mean dicta? I'll look it up.
Well, is it?
Well, you have to. I have to read it. Yeah, I have to read it. Dicta is the idea that it's a part of the persuasion and the reasoning, but it's not binding. Like, so that they used it to come to their opinion, but it's not binding the opinion. So you have dicta and you have holder. I just don't have time to go back and read. I don't have time. I can't do it this week.
Well, even if you read it, it's not gonna
No, I'll see what the preponderance of the argument is. I just can't. I mean, I never took it as part of the ruling. I understood it as they're working through the particulars of his case. not be naturalized given laws against Chinese in particular in the period. They used the family's domicility when he was born some 20, 21 years, 22, however old he was years earlier, to argue in his case. But then the ruling went on to say more. It's not.
But his parents would have still been subjected to U.S. law.
Yes, and they were subjects to the Emperor of China.
Yeah, but we also can look at other law, including Supreme Court rulings, right? To understand that, okay, maybe even if there is an argument that you can't read domicility to Wonky Mark, there are other laws there that you can't read domicility into. And
there's Supreme Court ruling, and there's also statutes.
Yep.
In the 1940 statute, they don't mention it. In fact, they just repeat the 14th Amendment time and again. I was actually surprised. This is going to be a little technical. I apologize. But if you read Wong King Art, that case is they argue that the 14th Amendment is declaratory. That's what's so bizarre about some of the government's arguments. They were not establishing something new. The 14th is, I'm sorry, Wong King Art argues that the 14th Amendment itself is declaratory. It is not the establishment of something new, but rather it is clarifying something that was already operative. That's what declaratory statute is, or declaratory law, whatever you want to call it, or declaratory judgment, right? They weren't establishing anything new, and they certainly weren't establishing domicility. I don't know, but they don't mention it anywhere else, Patty. If you go to the 1940 law, where it says what the classes of citizen is and naturalization is, they don't mention. They literally say, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And I'll be honest with you, this is from the stuff I've read, a lot of conservative jurisprudence, voodoo doctrine. Not voodoo doctrine, witchcraft, voodoo. Because there was no confusion on what that term meant prior to this, anti-14th Amendment movement in the 70s and 80s picking huge. I went back and read the Congressional Globe from the 1866, 1867, anybody find it online. I went back and read some of the congressional record around the 1940 law and a teeny bit. They never mentioned, I went back and searched for it, they never talk about domicility like that. And they had no confusion on what's subject to the jurisdiction thereof means either.
I found 4 Supreme Court cases that are against reading domicility. Do not discuss domicility whatsoever. Yeah, it's not a thing.
It's not a thing. And again, it runs afoul of the argument on the formerly enslaved, which Amy Coney Barrett, who had the single best line of questioning today by far.
He did the time. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, Kagans are very good too. And it's interestingly enough, they're the law professors, but shout out to the professorial class talking about. Well, it's true. But like she made it today. She said you can't make this argument around domicility and allegiance vis-a-vis the enslaved. Doesn't make sense.
They're arguing all this, but the one thing that keeps being brought up is like, if you're born in the U.S., you're a citizen. And then the other word is jurisdiction, subject to jurisdiction.
Born or naturalized, yeah.
Because of the Constitution, because of the amendments.
Wait, say that again?
So, if you're born in the U.S., that's where citizenship applies, right? And then another thing, subject to jurisdiction. So if you're subject to U.S. law, you're born in the U.S., I don't understand, I'm getting confused with this domicile thing.
They're arguing that if people aren't, I think the claim is, I think Solicitor General Sauer is trying to argue that when it was written, and he's trying to argue this as well using the Wong King Art case, that if you were not domiciled, which is to say, legally here and a resident. So that requires, I think, 2 things. There's sort of 2 parts of that test. You have to be here legally, and it has to be a permanence of some degree, a sort of indefinite permanence, he's arguing. If you don't fit that test, the 4th Amendment does not apply to you.
Can we change the rules for diplomats then? Because the difference with diplomats when you're talking about people that's foreign to illegal citizens. It's the diplomats.
No, they have a special carve-out in law. They already have a special carve-out.
Right, but they're not subject to U.S. law because they have that.
Right, so their kids aren't citizens. Well, actually, that's actually also strange because I looked it up the other day because it came up, and so I read a bit about it. So-called blue list diplomats, their kids don't, but white list ones do, or vice versa. I can't remember the list. So certain diplomats' kids actually do get it. It's a total mess, and the only way it can be fixed is with Congress to fix it, and Congress is totally dysfunctional. Well, let me back up. It's actually not a mess. They made a mess of it because they want to change it without going the necessary political channels. There are two ways to change it. You have Congress pass a law and then have that law pass constitutional muster. That's very, very difficult to do. The first part is extremely difficult. The second part will be difficult, but they have sympathies on the court 6-3. That's fine. The second part is just change the Constitution. They don't even talk about that. They can change it. But instead, they want to do an executive order. The framers of the 14th Amendment, by the way, when they wrote this, Andrew Johnson was fucking president. Just keep that in mind in your backdrop. If there's one person or one office holder who they did not want to be able to determine who was not a citizen, it was the president. Huh? It's a mess. But they're gonna home in on this domicility thing, and it's gonna get them a vote or two. I still think it could be 7-2 or 8-1 or 9-0, but they might get a vote or two on this domicility thing. But I don't even think the domicility thing matters because the Congress has clarified it time and again by simply repeating the 14th Amendment after Wong Kim Ark. I know I'm repeating myself, say it over and over again, but there was no confusion. The problem with this administration, as much as they like American history, they just don't like what other Congresses and Supreme Courts have done. They should just say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
You know, they really don't have to change the law because I told y'all my dad was an FSL. So when you're like, if you're a blue list, supposedly in the U.S., they're still subject to the law. There's no immunity for them. Only if it's like an official act, like the president. If it's an official act within their capacity for the country that they're representing, then yes, they may be immune. But if it's like personal, your kid goes steal a candy bar, then your ass is fucking your kid. And if you go steal a candy bar, then yeah, you're subject to whatever criminal laws in that area. So I understand that. No law has to be changed on that piece.
Now, I don't know if they would be subject to federal laws, though. They might be subject to state law. I don't know. So if you steal a candy bar, there might be a repercussion, but I think with federal crimes.
Yeah, but with the blue list, yeah, they're subject. With the white list, those guys get all types of protection.
100%. Yeah, right. So
one of my dad's best friends, this motherfucker's gonna go murder somebody. They just gonna send him back to the country.
Yeah.
I may be.
No, if it's federal, yeah, I think so. If it's state, maybe not. But yeah, I agree. I don't know how it works with states. Maryland probably has a special thing because they all live in Maryland, Virginia. But the domicility argument, it's just a strange thing because I remember when I read it, I said, they're trying to establish, because there was a question of why weren't they citizens? And this is what the government brought up in the case, why they, it's because they couldn't become citizens. Because at the time, I'm going to skip people to dates.
It's starting to get confusing to me. I think I got too much shit going on in my brain.
No, it's only you're right because you kind of weren't talking through with us earlier. The legal theories that they're proposing, logic that they're offering, is so bad that it takes you a good hour of working through it. It took me and Neoliberal like an hour of talking about it out loud for it to get clarity, and you won't get clarity. You have to give up. It's literally that bad.
Yeah, I'm giving the best possible version of their argument that they are not really making. The general was making a real mess trying to differentiate between domicile allegiance and immigration status. It was insane. And I threw out allegiance because with allegiance it just doesn't gel together whatsoever.
Yeah, so his parents first came. They first came and opened up a business in the early 1870s, and he was born around that time. I think he was born thereafter, and the Chinese Exclusion Act was 1882, I believe, was 1882. So they were here, and then I think they left. Ah! And I think they left. And he tried to get back in and claimed he was a citizen.
The other reason I'm asking all these questions because it's worrisome. Not for me at this time, but at one time my dad wasn't on my birth certificate, and then my mom was here going to school in the U.S. pregnant with me, so she never added my dad until later on. So it's there are kids out here that may have a parent that's a U.S. citizen. They may not have their parent on their birth certificate because they weren't married at the time. Even though they got married later, it was not a big rush for them to do something like this until the first separation.
Oh, here it is, Patty. Here it is, right here.
That's my daddy. That's the shit that's crazy.
Here it is, right here, Patty. The reason why, Neil, I don't know if you know about this statute. I forgot about this. It was called the Naturalization Act of 1870. And it limited who could be naturalized as citizens to white people and persons of African descent. And so it was a way to incorporate the formerly enslaved, like the people of African descent, to be naturalized, right? So they wanted to extend certain naturalization and rights to black immigrants and formerly enslaved persons. So his parents were never eligible for naturalization. That's why the domicility part is key to the ruling. Is key to the ruling on his citizenship, but it's not key, as my understanding is, Dr. You can correct me wrong, as a general matter. They were not limiting it to the domicile. And yeah, I agree with you, but we should drop the allegiance. The allegiance thing makes no sense. It's very difficult. You're confused because the guy's making no sense.
Yeah, it's not. And then I'm trying to listen to the lady and I understand what she's saying when she's trying to say how they're narrowing citizenship. The justice is bringing up the domicile piece. I don't understand where I'm getting confused is how do they determine domicile when you bring up you're born in the United States and then you're subject to the laws and jurisdictions. So I'm just so confused because I'm like, what the fuck? Why the fuck would they keep bringing this up? If that's the whole case, if the Constitution is saying you're born in the U.S., number one, and you're subject to laws, then guess what? You're a fucking citizen.
No, they're bringing it up because they're saying that the 14th, through their peculiar, idiosyncratic, and one might argue, I don't know, whatever way of reading the Wong Art case, they're reading that the illegal immigrant and people here on temporary visas are not domiciled. And since they don't pass that test, and the illegal doesn't pass both portions of that test. They're not here legally, the undocumented, they're not here legally, and they're also not domiciled. Right? Because they don't test, they're not citizens. They're not even talking about the subject of the jurisdiction thereof. And I'm surprised at how little that was brought up to the Solicitor General. That was kind of bizarre.
So the way the federal government's thinking about jurisdiction, I'm looking at the brief right now. They filed to the Supreme Court the merits brief. I'm just going to read it. Political jurisdiction is what they're referring to. It is a reciprocal relationship in which an individual owes allegiance to and
question from a sovereign. They quote Wong King Ark right there. And this court has long interpreted the citizenship clause's jurisdictional requirement to mean that a person must be completely subject to the United States political jurisdiction, not subject to it merely in some respect or degree. And this, I think, is important sentence right here. A person thus acquires citizenship by birth under the clause only if, under background principles of American law as understood at the time of the 14th Amendment's ratification, he also owes primary allegiance to the country and has a complete claim to its protection. That understanding of jurisdiction is supported by pre-ratification evidence showing that primary allegiance was widely understood to be a prerequisite for birthright citizenship. Is confirmed by ratification-era evidence tying citizenship to primary allegiance and is consistent with contemporaneous cases identifying the categories of individuals who become citizens by birth. And to your point earlier, Ben, complete protection, complete claim to its protection, then of course that would exclude black folks. It would exclude a lot of people, actually, I think, because, what is the scope of that protection and in which kind of legal context would that protection apply? So it seems like, I don't know what this political jurisdiction thing is. I haven't seen it before, at least in my years of practicing, which isn't a lot, but I've never seen such a thing called political jurisdiction.
Yeah. You know what's so fucked up about this whole situation? So during the first administration, there was talks about birthright citizenship. Nothing went forward. My parents they went to court so that they can get my dad on my birth certificate. Number one, because I was in the military. I was in the military, and there are certain things that my parents were kind of worried about. My dad was more worried about because of his previous position as an FSO, in other countries. So it's we gotta make sure your birth certificate looks good. But then I'm gonna tell y'all, 6 months ago, when I requested a copy of my birth certificate, my dad's name still wasn't on it. And we still had to send, I had to call my dad to get, the legal paperwork so that we can send it to the state so that they can update it. Because they were saying that whatever information I sent just to get it expedited didn't match. They sent me a letter saying it didn't match. So there are people, I don't know why it takes so long for the fucking courts to fucking update certain things. But what happens to the people that, because I was trying to get a real ID, that's why I went and got that done. What happens to the people, say for example, they decide that this is what it is and we're gonna go with this and this is not the rule anymore. What happens to the people that didn't have their shit updated? Because the state of New York did not update my shit. So I would still have been considered an anchor baby.
I don't think so, because your dad was a citizen.
Yeah, but we didn't get it updated until the first administration. So let's say I didn't get it updated at all.
I mean, you might have got lost in the thing. They would argue that that's states just being whatever. But that came in the case today. You might have missed it. You might have been away. Justice Jackson asked, this is going to be a mess. How do you determine this stuff? It's a mess.
Right, and it will take a parent, like my dad, to say, hey, this is my kid. And I'm declaring this as my child. And then my parents had to pay for a court date just to get that updated.
Yeah.
And they had to pay for a lawyer. Everybody doesn't have the money to pay for a lawyer to get certain things updated for their kid.
Yeah. They're not really interested in that. Julian, can you come up? You said you disagreed with something I wrote about the 1870 Act. What do you disagree with? Can you say, or are you at work and you can't speak?
Separately, it's kind of only now dawning on me what you've been repeating a few times about slavery.
Yeah.
If this ruling, let's say it's not going to happen, but if the government's position is upheld, that means the United States for a long time, the citizenship for black people, descendants of slavery, however the correct framing is, they were non-citizens.
Correct. That's correct.
Right?
That's exactly what they argued today.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to Dan talk about this shit, and it's really fucking with my head, because I'm like, God damn, because it's not fucking with me no more, because I got it updated. But what if I never went to go get that real ID? Because I got a passport. I only went to get the real ID just because this is a thing, right?
So exactly, Patty. That's exactly right. So
Neo, Golden been said that 17 times already, and you saying you just now dawning on you.
Well, yeah, of what I'm saying. It took a while.
The logic.
It's like most women, they come around eventually. But that's exactly the point. I don't want people to realize that. That means that Odie, based off what we heard today, Odie is more of a citizen than I or BT would be. Let me tell you why.
Big fact.
Because let me tell you why. Because Odie, based off what the Trump administration argued today, was naturalized under the 1870 Act. So he's protected by 1870. I had the Naturalization Act of 1870. Let me read you what it says, since Julian says he disagrees. I have the statute. I don't know why I just come on here and think I'm just talking out of my ass. I actually read it. Let me tell you what it says. This is what it says. It'll be further enacted that the naturalization laws are, Omar, why don't you listen first before you say this a stretch? That the naturalization laws are hereby extended to aliens, nativity, and to persons of African descent. The naturalization laws are hereby extended to aliens of African nativity and to persons of African descent. This is an amendment, or an extension as they call it here, to the first federal law, that is the Naturalization Act of 1790, which extended it to free white persons. So you could be naturalized as a free white person under this law. I'm sorry, under the 1790 law. This law, some 80 years later, extended it to, quote, aliens of African nativity. That's Odinawere, Kedu, Kimare, Atutuwoma. Aliens of Africa, he's an alien, he's of African nativity and person of African descent. That is naturalization. My citizenship, I was not naturalized. Omar was not naturalized. BT was not naturalized. Our citizenship comes from being born here as descendants of enslaved persons. But based off of what the government argued today, my ancestors, BT's ancestors, and Omar's ancestors might have been here illegally and therefore weren't legally domiciled and therefore weren't protected under the 14th Amendment.
Why do young black Americans need to go back?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So people say, I don't know. They're not going to retroactively take people's citizenship. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying that the theory of the case today, if it were to hold, is that many black Americans and their kids and their parents were wrongfully granted slavery. Granted citizenship,
citizenship. I mean,
citizenship. Hold on. Julian's saying cap. I want people to come up and tell me where it's cap. I listened to the thing for 3 hours today. This is exactly what Amy Comey Barrett said.
Longer than 3 hours. You got it since 10 o'clock, man.
Hold on, Patty. I want Julian to come up and tell me where I'm wrong. That's exactly what ACB said today. There were enslaved persons. Omar put the number right. Up to 10% of us come from people who were brought here illegally, unlawfully, shall this week, after January 1, 1808. That's human trafficking. They're illegal. So they weren't legally domiciled. Based on what the argument the guy argued today, that person and her descendants were not covered under the 14th Amendment. Julian, just come up and tell me where I'm wrong. We listened to it today. I'm reading from a statute. You're going to be reading out of your dingleberry ass.
Let me ask you another question, Bam. So my mom came on the app one day. She was at the house. She was on the phone with me, and I had her. The lady was in the room that day, and she said, "Yeah, I'm gonna apply for my citizenship." My mom has permanent residency, So how would that affect her when she has kids? She has me now. She has my sister. She has my dad.
I'll tell you, it means that if your dad were like your mom, say your dad wasn't Black American and your dad was like your mom and also legal permanent resident, based on what they argue today, your citizenship would be more secure than mine. That's actually what that meant. That's what that meant. If you think about it and take it to it, they actually were arguing today that Wong citizenship, the Trump administration, is more secure and more assured by the 14th Amendment than many Black Americans who derive from chattel slavery. That's what they were arguing today.
But how does that affect my mom, though? I got another.
It doesn't. She's fine. It doesn't.
So they did expedite it because of FSO and because of his prior military service. So they did expedite it, but her citizenship hasn't been granted yet. She hasn't been able to take her test. She does her interviews, but she hasn't been able to take her test yet. So how does that? I'm just trying to ask questions, and this is very important to me. I don't want my mom.
She'll be fine.
Well, you're good. It should be more important to us. They trying to get your ass.
I mean, they're going to lose anyway. They're going to lose anyway, but people, I mean, maybe when we're done, we can rewind it. People should go back and listen to what Amy Coney Barrett said. If you're relying, oh, by the way, that's when they were talking about allegiance. You're telling me an enslaved person in 1820, his allegiance was to the United States? That doesn't make any sense. That's what they argue today. That his elite, huh? By the way, well, I'll leave it there. That makes no sense. We'll have Julian come up and tell me where the cap is. I'm reading the law. We'll have Julian come up and tell us what I'm wrong. I'll read it again. This is 1870. It was passed July 14th, 1870. I'm reading what am I reading? This is the 41st Congress. This is their, the congressional record of 1870. Y'all like to dilly-dally. I'm sitting in my office now. I can look. In fact, I need to put my glasses on. That the naturalization laws are hereby extended to aliens. Aliens is not the enslaved. Aliens of African nativity. Nativity means birth. And to persons of African descent. That's the naturalization laws. Me, BT, Omar, Julian, we don't have citizenship from naturalization. We have it from birthright. This doesn't pertain to us. We weren't naturalized. Our ancestors weren't naturalized. They were enslaved.
And they were considered property at one time.
I mean, ish. I mean, that's a little complicated. I mean, yes, but they also had.
But property is about 13th and 14th Amendment, right?
I mean, they were property, but not in the. I mean, that doesn't have any much bearing. That doesn't have any bearing on this particular thing.
But why wouldn't it have bearing without the 13th or 14th Amendment? Because, like, if you're considered property at one time, or your parents were great, whatever, I don't know how far back, were considered property, they weren't considered citizens. And then the 13th and 14th Amendment is what gave them their quote-unquote citizenship overturned Dred Scott, right?
No, but those aren't the only two categories. I mean, there were white people who weren't property or citizens too. There's other categories. They kind of sat in the betwixt and in between. But vis-a-vis the Constitution, they were considered persons.
Can I also just...
I'm sorry, they weren't counted as such.
Also, I think the property...
Hold on, Black. I've been trying to get in, but I didn't want to go over the padding.
No, just...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the property matter goes more to the matter of personhood, which is, like, I think a little bit of a distinct category from citizen here, which is, I think goes to what Van's talking is, like, particularly apropos for this conversation. Typically, when we're thinking about, like, property, we're talking about, like, personhood, and even that was a little complicated, especially in the 19th century, because, Black people weren't considered property for purposes of, criminal prosecution, for example. So, like, it's just, like, the context varied, but I don't think it's necessarily relevant for this, like, Black people being property for the purposes of for the question of citizenship.
But property is what changed your citizenship, correct?
You said properties was, I don't know what you mean by that question. Property change.
Going from property to being actually being a human being that has quote unquote domicile.
So for example, I think what would be more appropriate rather than thinking about just like the presumption is that all black people, for example, were enslaved persons. So like if you leave that out, right? Like just like bracket enslaved persons. Think about black free people, right? Who were undoubtedly citizens. You know, that's why I'm saying like the slavery question, or rather, I shouldn't say the slavery question, but like black people being property doesn't necessarily have to factor in here because you had to get black people who weren't property, they were free people, and we would still have a question of citizenship on the table.
But okay, so this is why I'm saying that. The only reason why I bring up property is because of the Dred Scott case. And then
What is that? What do you mean?
So with Dred Scott, he had to be returned, considered quote unquote property, right? He wasn't considered like a human being or a citizen because of.
He was never claiming to be a citizen. The property thing would throw you off because they're free blacks. You had blacks who weren't citizens.
Right, and even with the free blacks, they weren't considered citizens because there was no such as a 13th or 14th Amendment.
Right, but they weren't. Well, some were. It's very complicated, but they also weren't property, is what Black freedom is saying.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Some women, very few, but some women did vote in 1870. I don't know why people make these absolutist statements when you can just go and look. It's very. This is good. It's just maybe 1 or 2 black women who voted. Maybe in a play. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2. And who was the other one? Did Julian come up? Because Julian said I was getting it. I don't know why people want the 1870 law. It says it right there.
I don't want nobody to think I'm stupid. I'm asking these questions because these are the questions that are coming into my brain. I screenshot. They're coming in. I put them in my notes when they're talking. This hasn't got nothing to do with me being a stupid ass female. It's me not understanding the conversation that's going on between the Supreme Court justice and the people that's fighting the case. So or arguing for the case. No, I just want somebody to. I want everybody to understand this. I don't understand. I can't phantom what I can't understand when in my brain. And it's what I've been brought up to know, is just so lay makes sense. And if you're subject to jurisdiction, then guess what? Motherfucker, if you can go to prison or you can go to jail and you're born on the U.S. soil, you're a citizen. That's it. That's all it's been for me all my life. So now with these arguments or even listening to these order arguments, there's a confusion on why just so lay or common law, what they're freaking pulling from what would have been the original, how they started writing the Constitution based off of their quote unquote forefathers in Europe. I'm confused because now it's like, what the fuck is going on? Because I listened to a little bit of what happened prior to, and then I'm listening to what this female is saying. And now I'm confused because it's like, where does common law make sense? When the Constitution clearly states just so lay makes sense, and subject to jurisdiction makes sense. And then people bringing up the blue and white, and then I know what blue and white looks like because my dad would have considered blue because he's not white. That dude that was he was on the financial track.
I think you're making all our IQs go down because we had it and now I'm lost.
No. What I'm trying to understand is what the argument is, because if 2 things should be the final. This is why you're
Negroes. Say that.
BT, shut the fuck up and go find out what reparations look like.
Trying to get y'all immigrants are good. They're trying to make y'all immigrants.
I was born in the United States.
Get us back to Africa.
I was born in the United States.
That's what's.
Shut the fuck up, bro, before I kick your ass out.
No, I have a question too, if you don't mind. Because it was something that y'all was talking about the domicility part, but when asked about Native Americans or indigenous people, did you notice he got stuck? and he had to.
He shouldn't have got stuck. He got stuck. Domicility came about back in the 1800s. Before the thing is, domicility would have been because they're considered a separate nation. So like it's like saying, oh, I'm from Ireland, and I'm claiming I'm a U.S. resident. Now they overturned that because obviously the United States is the whole mass of land now. But at one time, if you were from let's pretend it's like Wisconsin and they're not part of the 13 original colonies, am I right or wrong? So somebody can fix this. From my understanding of history, when it comes to the Indians that were considered a separate nation, they're not the United States.
Well, I mean, it's a mess because there's many federal laws. It's a mess. It's a mess. So if a native lives on a reservation, born on a reservation in what is now Oklahoma, committed a federal crime, he was absolutely charged with, unless I'm wrong, don't correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was absolutely charged with the federal crime. Was he not?
How could he be charged with a federal crime if he lived in Wisconsin and that wasn't part of the 13 original colonies?
Huh? I said in 1880.
In 1880. And the reason why he would have been charged with a federal crime is because the federal government had jurisdiction.
They had jurisdiction over a sovereign nation?
Yeah, that's why it's complicated, because they weren't citizens that they were born in that sovereign nation.
Right. So if I'm born in a sovereign nation, just because I'm in the middle of your, I am a separate nation.
No. Patty, this is, now you guys are, y'all black. Y'all forgot how white supremacy works. When they want to take something away from the non-white, they take it away. When they don't want to have something to have, they keep it from them. When they want to punish them, they punish them. It was an unequal treatment of the law. You could be treated as a citizen for punishment while not being a citizen. It's really that simple.
Yes, that's correct. That is correct, and that
it's 1880. Like, what's going on?
Right, and if they were serious about it, and when you think about those treaties that they broke, all those treaties that they had between these nations, they broke them.
So to 468 treaties. Literally.
We get a little off.
We need to be.
I'm just.
You're in the matrix. But I'm wondering, does that, when he said, I don't know, I have to see. I wonder if the Nickians, if they were choking on feathers.
No, because they're not listening. Let's get back to the tape. You guys want to do Clubhouse. Let me finish the arguments first.
It was a trap question from Gorsuch. Gorsuch always does this.
Yes.
To American law, every time he speaks, first he does the native land acknowledgement, and then he traps somebody in the Native American law. The question, why was it a trap? Because Indian Citizenship Act was in 1924. And the theory that the government is building was before 1924, right? And if you tack on domicility to the theory, then and push it, right? Narrow reading of jurisdiction the government was arguing for, it becomes Native Americans become, in one reading, birthright citizens under Constitution at the time of before 1924.
But we had the mainland still neoliberal. So now you have to recognize that these nations, quote unquote nations, are within your boundaries. When it comes to the Indians.
Well,
right?
Okay, the way I understand it, right, like the government is arguing that not everyone born on the United States soil is automatically a citizen because domicility, etc., right? Historically, and this is before the whole theory is based on pre-1924 law, right? an understanding. So old cases treated them differently because tribal sovereignty, right? Tribes were separate political communities that the whole argument on domicility and allegiance does not work, right? So he's kind of arguing against himself there, and that's what Gorsuch was trying to answer, right? Like, there is an inconsistency. Gorsuch dropped it. That's why he kind of didn't answer. He gave some type of way. He said, "Well, I have to think about it." That's what he said.
Yeah, he did.
Hey, man, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Two things. One,
Matrix. Matrix. I think we should go back and keep listening to the thing.
You in the Matrix, BT.
Write it down, BT, and then come back. We got to listen to it.
At least some authorities took the view that the non-domiciliary question wasn't decided, remained open, and even continued to press the view that domicile is required. Now, I know you've got a lot of good stuff on your side, too. What do we do with the fact that many sound legal authorities far remained an open question, even if one of them wasn't John Marshall Harlan?
I liked your example from Justice Harlan's lecture here in D.C. So here's what I would say. All of the government citations in their brief generally either were rejected by Wonk and Mark explicitly if they predated Wonk and Mark.
If I'm trying to understand how the legal community understood what happened in Wonk and Mark, it seems to me it's a mess. So maybe you can persuade me otherwise.
I think I can, Justice Gorsuch. First, as to the post-Wonk and Mark authorities the government cites, each one of them is inconsistent with Wonk and Mark's reasoning or doesn't mention it at all. Most of them have very little reasoning at all. We have on our side, post-Wonk and Mark, is numerous federal court decisions around the time of Wonk and Mark, between ratification and Wonk and Mark, that said that domicile is not relevant. They cited Lynch versus Clark, which again was about the daughter of temporary sojourners. We have the 6th edition of Keck, which was cited in Wonk and Mark, and of course was then cited after Wonk and Mark was decided by many authorities, again discussing temporary sojourners. Anyone know what the law of citizenship was under the 14th Amendment after Wonk and Mark would go to the 6th edition of Keck, where he says in that footnote on page 38 that the rule was Lynch versus Clark, and temporary sojourners' children are U.S. citizens. We have members of Congress speaking on the record on debates on immigration laws, where they were finally passing these immigration restrictions that Senator Cowan wanted. And they all stated either that Lynch was the rule, that Attorney General Bates had stated the rule, again citing Lynch, or Kent, and stating the rule that everyone born in the U.S. is a citizen, and saying, look, children of Chinese immigrants, these immigrants who are unwelcome, these immigrants that Congress is now trying to bar from entering the United States, if their children born in the United States are citizens. We have in 1896, so a couple of years before Wonk and Mark, but in 1896, State Department regulation, which said that U.S.-born children of foreign nationals are U.S. citizens, accepting only the children of ambassadors. And then you have Marshall Woodworth, who is a U.S. attorney who writes in a law review article. He's talking specifically about temporary sojourners' children, and he says, I don't think that's a good rule from a policy perspective, but that's the general.
Can I offer a possible explanation for why Justice Gray made a point of putting domicile in what he said was the holding of the case? And is this, Wong Kim Ark and his parents, had they come to the United States from Europe, could have been naturalized. But because they were Chinese, they could not be naturalized. And they had done everything that they could to make themselves Americans by establishing a domicile in the United States. And so that's what this was about. He couldn't get naturalized naturalized because of a racist law, thing they could to become part of the American society. At the same time, there were many men who were horribly exploited, brought to the United States to work on the Transcontinental Railroad, to work, they were worked to death. They were treated horrifically, but they were overwhelmingly men. That wasn't an indication that they would stay here, they could stay here, they didn't have permanent homes. And the opinion is drawing a distinction between those two categories of people who would have been well understood at the time when Wong Kim Ark was decided.
No, Justice Alito, I don't think that's a plausible explanation for why domicile is mentioned in Wong Kim Ark, because again, the controlling rule of decision based on the English common law and cases from Skinner Exchange to Lynch versus Clark to State versus Manuel, which was the North Carolina decision that said, look, the rule in the United States from independence on has been the English common law rule. That explanation would be inconsistent.
Isn't that explanation? I take Justice Alito's point, and I think he actually makes a good one in the sense that it could be that Justice Gray emphasized domicile to help the public accept the outcome of this case. You're suggesting that the emphasis on domicile was not a part of the rule, meaning he wasn't saying you had to be like a foreigner who is doing everything they can and who can't lie, but he might have emphasized those facts in this case precisely because Chinese immigrants were unwanted, precisely because he had to go out into the public and people were going to say, whoa, you're saying these people have to, this baby has to be a citizen? And so one could imagine that it was important from a standpoint of helping people accept this rule under these circumstances to emphasize that these particular people in this case were in Justice Alito's first category. That is very possible, Justice Jackson, and as evidence of that, I would point to the fact that if you look at the briefing in Wong Kim Ark, you'll see that even though the parties had stipulated in the district that Wong Kim Ark's parents were domiciled in the United States, when the case came to the Supreme Court, the government's brief argued that it was impossible for Chinese immigrants to have domicile because they expressed the view that was common among people who opposed immigration by Chinese nationals to the United States. There was a common view that Chinese people were inherently temporary sojourners in the country. And so I do think it's possible, Justice Alito and Justice Jackson, that he was trying to dispel that notion and tell the government that at least it reads as though he's trying to calm everyone down. These particular people were domiciled, but we're following the English common law rule. And when you look at the English common law rule, domicile is not a factor.
That's right. I think, who knows what the majority opinion mentioned domicile. We know is a stipulated fact. We know the government tried to renege on that stipulation and rely on this assumption on the part of anti-Chinese advocates at that time that Chinese people couldn't form a domicile in the United States, and he followed the English common law rule.
Ms. Michael, I just wanted to ask you a question about how the exceptions fit within the general law.
Yeah, pause
You call them exceptions, and some of the common law sources call them
pause
exceptions.
it. What people just heard and may have missed, but I caught it, was an over-prepared, over-educated, probably very smart lawyer in Cecilia Wang not listening to the judges and basing it. It was very Clubhouse what she did. She disagreed with what Alito was saying because it was Alito, and she thinks he's on the other side. And Jackson had to come in and save her because what Alito was saying, which is what I've been saying all day, the domicile argument only had essentially what they effectively were saying was how they were establishing Wong Kim Ark's parents because
because they were excluded from naturalization under the 1790 Naturalization Act and its subsequent updates, including the 1870, even though they were already here for that. Right? Not even already here. They came in 69, 70, 71. I just looked online, right? And Wang thought that he was trying to make an argument that that was key to the ruling. And Jackson had to come in and save her by saying, oh, no. He was actually just saying that to explain the Wong Arcs, their family's case, but the ruling was based on common law. Did you catch that, Neil?
Wow.
Yeah.
She heard Alito, she was like, oh, that's not it. Jackson came in and said, oh, no, that is it. That's exactly it. Stop. Jackson literally just said, not that they were going to lose the case anyway, but Jackson literally came in to save her because Wang is not listening. She did Clubhouse. Somebody said something and people disagree. But what Alito was saying is correct. If you read the Wang case, the Wong Ar Kim case, they focused on domicility because the parents could not be naturalized under American naturalization law. But their ruling had nothing to do with domicility.
I mean, but you know, man, I think, and this is to Alito's earlier questions, but for him, domicility does matter. And Jackson, I view her as, I'm going to take what Alito's saying and actually flip it. And say, actually, what domicility was, it wasn't one, a part of the holding, but two, it really just had to do with the parentage and describing the parentage.
I know.
Like, but my point is that it's not so much Wang mishearing more than it is Justice Jackson taking what Alito did and saying, actually, this is how it happened.
Well, Wang should have did.
Yeah, that's the lawyer.
That's my point.
My point is that I'm addressing your point specifically about how for Alito, domicility actually is central.
No, I know it is. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it is for him. And she should have said domicility is important, but only for the... That's what I'm saying is Jackson did what the lawyer should have did because the lawyer's not listening. It's like, well, I'll give you an example. Corbin said this morning there were 3 Jews. I asked him to name them. I didn't say there weren't. I said name them. And he couldn't. She should have said, no, Justice Alito, that's right. And the reason why is because of these laws. He mentioned the racist law. Alito brought up a racist law. She should have dug in. That was the point. That this stuff is giving citizenship notwithstanding the racist laws.
So she was Clubhouse. She was listening to respond instead of listening.
100%.
I don't think it's so. What it is that the way the arguments were briefed is that the respondents here, Cecilia and everybody else, they're like this domicility argument.
Correct.
Right? And so Alito finds that argument to be fascinating, and I think that his dissent will be based on that. He agrees with the government's theory.
I agree.
Right? And so I think Wang isn't hearing it more than she disagrees with Alito's premise, and that's where I think Jackson comes in and says, this is how you flip that. And so I don't think so much
she flip it.
But this is what the justices do sometimes.
I know, I understand that. I'm just saying, but then what we should play it back, because she said, no. She should have said, yes. And she should have yes and it is what I'm saying. I don't know. I mean, I know y'all like her. She went to Yale, and she's an immigrant. She's a liberal. She's ACLU. And I know you all gotta like her because she's on your team. I thought she was terrible today. I know you guys gotta like her because she's a liberal from UCL, the ACLU, and she went to Berkeley undergrad, and she got her JD from Yale, and she clerked on. I think she clerked on the night for a Supreme Court justice or two. She's really smart. She's an immigrant kid. I don't give a fuck. I thought that was terrible. I would have said to him, I said it today, but in the beginning, I said it on here. I said, that's exactly what the case is about. Because when I read the Wong Ar case, it's been a couple of months since I've read this long, but I recall they were homing in on it because of the 1870. They said, look, he didn't have a chance to be this sort of thing. That's the only reason why we're bringing up domicility. That's it. She could have said that, but I know you got to defend her. She's on your team.
I think... is that why Black Freedom's going so hard to justify her? Or to clean it up?
That's what they did. I mean,
They do team warfare. I'm the only honest one on here. These people do team warfare.
And I appreciate
I mean, I think, ban, I get that reading. I just read it as you don't want to give any credence, at least as the attorney for the respondents, to the domicility argument. I think Jackson, more than anything, gives us a glimpse into how she's going to address the domicility argument in her concurrence.
Can you rewind it?
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, let's listen to the exchange again.
From the top, please.
From Alito's questioning, which, by the way, he brings up a racist law. The racist law is the 1790 Naturalization Act, the first major immigration law in America, which said only free white aliens could naturalize. There was nothing specific about Asians and Chinese in particular until the 1880s, but they could not be naturalized until later on.
All right, I'm about to play it.
Wong Kim Ark's parents were domiciled in the United States. When the case came to the Supreme...
Shall I go back further?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It's a good rule from a policy perspective, but that's the general...
Hold on.
States as to citizenship, at least for white Americans, from...
Are those your claws tapping? Are those your fingernails?
Not too much on.
Depending on whether the person intended to stay in the United States, might be just as fair or not.
Stop hating.
Incorporating what he said it meant. Page 572 of the congressional records directly addresses this.
Oh, no, way before that. No, it's way after that. No, you're going way too far back.
Stop Senator Wade's proposal. So, but these... based on the birth certificate. Government tried to strip Mr. Wong Kim Ark's citizenship on largely the same grounds they raised today.
Go, keep going a little bit more.
The 13th Amendment's fixed, bright-line rule has contributed to the growth and thriving of our nation. It comes from text and history. It is workable, and it prevents manipulation. The executive order fails on all those counts. Swaths of American laws would be rendered senseless. Thousands of American babies will immediately lose their citizenship. And if you credit the government's theory, the citizenship of millions of Americans, past, present, and future, could be called into question. All of this tells us the government's theory is wrong. I welcome the court's questions.
5 exceptions.
Pass this, Patty. Pass this. You go to Alito.
Yes, depending on how many you count, Justice Tom, how you count them.
What is the underlying rule of law that you use to connect these 5 exceptions?
Sure. So, as I just said, all of the exceptions involve situations where that U.S.-born child is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States because that extraterritoriality, the fiction of extraterritoriality, the interaction of another sovereign between the United States' jurisdiction and that person applies to the child as well as to the parent. Everyone else born in the United States is subject to the United States' jurisdiction. To answer Justice Barrett's question to my friend, that's what sets those exceptions apart from other U.S.-born persons.
We've heard a lot of talk about Wong Kim Ark and dismiss the use of the word domicile in it. It appears in the opinion 20 different times, and including in the question presented and in the actual legal holding. And the government doesn't want it to be overruled because it relies on, it's willing to rely on that particular fact in that case. Isn't it at least something to be concerned about, to say that since discussed 20 different times and has that significant role in the opinion that you can just dismiss it as irrelevant?
Well, Mr. Chief Justice, I think we have to look at the control of decision is in Wong Kim Ark. Justice Gray takes pains in the majority opinion to set out his analysis. He first starts with a premise that in construing the 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause, we look to the English common law. That was the rule that applied from the colonial era on, at least for the colonists or Europeans. He then says, look, Chief Justice Marshall tells us in the Skinner Exchange what subject to the jurisdiction means. Again, looking to the English common law. Under English common law, if you are born in the dominions of the sovereign, you owe natural allegiance. And those who are present in the dominions of the sovereign owe temporary allegiance for as long as they're present. The only exceptions, again, in common law were ambassadors, people born on foreign ships, and people who were born during periods of foreign occupation. Government's favorite page, 693, where he says, in the United States as to citizenship, at least for white Americans, from before independence. The purpose of the 14th Amendment was to embrace that universal rule of birthright citizenship, to embrace and incorporate the common law exceptions with the exception of the pre-existing exception for tribal Indians that we have in the United States, which is an analogous exception, and that's the closed set of exceptions. You can't make sense of the holding in the case without looking to the controlling rule of decision, which is the common law. And I think my friend agrees that under English common law, domicile was not relevant, and the children born to temporary visitors in the territory of the sovereign were always considered birthright citizens.
Well, Ms. Wong, I mean, everything you say strikes me as, yeah, that's the way I read it too, but then what are those 20 domicile words doing there? Like, you can take some of them and say, I don't know, they were just summarizing the facts of the case, but not all of them. And why did they keep on, why did they sprinkle that in the opinion?
Well, I think, again, those were the stipulated facts in the case. Yeah, it's clear we have textual evidence in the majority opinion that they were simply saying this is an a fortiori application of that controlling rule that comes from the English common law. Justice Gray writes, again, after setting out the English common law rule and the exceptions with a single additional exception for children of members of Indian tribes, that amendment in clear words and manifest intent includes the children born within the territory of the United States of all other persons of whatever race or color domiciled within the United States. As was pointed out earlier, the very next part of that same paragraph, he cites to Webster talking about Thrasher's case, and he says, people who are born in this country owe allegiance independently of a residence within, foreign nationals owe allegiance independently of a residence with intention to continue such residence, independently of any domiciliation, and independently of taking any oath of allegiance, which is totally contrary to both the government's theory of dual allegiance or partial allegiance and to the theory of domiciliation.
I mean, I might agree with you if domicile had simply been sprinkled in the opinion, but in Wong Kim Ark, it's a long opinion, but it begins by saying, here's the question, and it ends by coming back to the question. And it says, here's the question stated at the beginning of the opinion, namely, whether a child born in the United States, parents of Chinese descent at the time of his birth are subjects of the Emperor of China, but have a permanent domicile and residence in the United States, and are there carrying on business, and he states the diplomatic exception, and he says, for the reasons above stated, this court is in that the question must be answered in the affirmative. So why put domicile in? Sometimes it's hard to figure out what is the holding of the case. Here he tells us this is the holding of the case. Why put domicile in there? It's just something, it's something irrelevant that he wanted to throw in. It's like, whether a child born in the United States or parents of Chinese descent who once resided at a particular address in San Francisco who attempted to enter the country at the port of San Francisco. Why put it in if it's irrelevant?
Well, Well, Justice Alito, I'll give you two responses. The first is that, again, it was a stipulated fact. The second is that regardless of what the judge in the case was, which again was an off-horseshoe application of the rule of decision, the rule of decision in Wong Kim Ark has binding precedential effect. Even if you think that Wong Kim Ark decided the case based on the stipulations, you have to follow that controlling rule of decision. And if you follow that rule, you get to the same result for people without domicile. Wong Kim Ark says 6 times in the first parts of the opinion, as well as on the page the government focuses on, that domicile is not relevant.
Well, Ms. Wong, on that, what do we do with the fact that after Wong Kim Ark, at least some authorities took the view that the non-domiciliary question wasn't decided, remained open, and even continued to press the view that domicile is required? Now, I know you've got a lot of good stuff on your side, too. But what do we do with the fact that many sound legal authorities thought it remained an open question, even if one of them wasn't John Marshall Harlan?
I like your example from Justice Harlan's lecture here in D.C. So all of the government citations in their brief generally either were rejected by Wong Kim Ark expressly if they predated Wong Kim Ark.
I'm trying to understand how the legal community understood what happened in Wong Kim Ark. It seems to me it's a mess.
So
maybe you can persuade me otherwise.
I think I can, Justice Gorsuch. First, as to the post-Wong Kim Ark authorities that the government cites, each one of them is inconsistent with Wong Kim Ark's reasoning or doesn't mention it at all. Most of them have very little reasoning at all. And in contrast, what we have on our side posts numerous federal court decisions around the time of Wong Kim Ark, between ratification and Wong Kim Ark, that said that domicile is not relevant. They cited Lynch versus Clark, which again was about the daughter of temporary sojourners. The 6th edition of Kent, which was cited in Wong Kim Ark, and of course was then, after Wong Kim Ark was decided by many authorities, again discussing temporary sojourners. Anyone who wanted to know what the law of citizenship was under the 14th Amendment after Wong Kim Ark would go to the 6th edition of Kent, where he says in that footnote on page 38 that the rule was Lynch versus Clark and temporary sojourners' children are U.S. citizens. We have members of Congress speaking on the record on debates on immigration laws, where they were finally passing these immigration restrictions that Senator Cowan wanted. And they all stated either that Lynch was the rule, that Attorney General Bates had stated the rule, again citing Lynch, or Kent, and stating the rule that everyone born in the U.S. is a citizen, and saying, look, children of Chinese immigrants, these immigrants who are unwelcome, these immigrants that Congress is now trying to bar from entering the United States, if their children born in the United States are citizens. We have an 1886, so a couple years before Wong Kim Ark, the 1896 State Department regulation, which said the U.S. born children of foreign nationals are U.S. citizens, excepting only the children of ambassadors. And then you have Marshall Woodworth, who is a U.S. attorney who writes in a law review article that he's talking specifically about temporary sojourners' children, and he says, I don't think that's a good rule from a policy perspective, but that's the general rule.
Mrs. Lang, can I offer a possible explanation for why Justice Gray made a point of putting domicile in what he said was the holding of the case? And it is this. Mark and his parents, had they come to the United States from Europe, could have been naturalized. But because they were Chinese, they could not be naturalized. And they had done everything that they could to make themselves Americans by establishing a domicile in the United States. And so that's what this was about. He couldn't get naturalized because of race, but they had done everything they could to become part of the American society. At the same time, there were many men who were horribly exploited, brought to the United States to work on the Transcontinental Railroad, to work in mines,
cases from Schooner Exchange.
Pause it.
Clark Estate versus Manual, which was the North Carolina decision that.
So Black Freedom, he did not, in fact, give any, like, oh, this is going to be my whole thing with domicile. He actually gave the, like, maybe you could be off domicile. I'm going to pull it. And she said no. And then Justice Jackson came in and said yes. Y'all think that, you thought she did a good job in the lead up to that? It was weedy. It was unnecessarily wonky. It was pedantic. It was wild details. When it was so bad. Kagan, I forgot that Kagan also something at work. I forgot. Kagan came in to help the lady out.
So if
Can I just say something about the oral argument really quickly?
Yeah, hold on, Ben. We're having a back and forth, bro.
So a few things. One, Alito said the reason why domicile was a part of the holding, and I think that, that's something that she rejects, right? That's something that our side rejects, because what happened to the question, domicile was a part of the question. What Wayne was trying to do was say, like, even if you think that that's a part of the holding, all these, like, the progeny of Wong Kim Ark shows that, like, domicile is not a part of how we understand this. All right, and so
I agree with that.
Right. So she's trying hard, right? So Alito says the reason why it's a part of the holding, right? Flat out, she rejects that premise. Like,
but that is the reason why it's part of the holding.
No, but keep in mind what she's trying to do. Like, domicile is not a part of this. She wants to move away. She's trying to move the court away from that, and they're trying to pin her down in that, right? Like she can say, hey, this is why domicile is a part of the holding, but, like, that's the position that the respondents are against. Like, domicile is not a part of the holding. That's not how we understand this. And the distinction that Alito brings up between Wong Kim Ark's parents, right, and the racist law he cites, versus, folks, who had been Transcontinental Railroad here. I wish he would have elaborated on that more, but it sounded to me like he was trying to draw, despite the fact that the law was racist, the distinction is that those who've been working on the Transcontinental Railroad have domicility.
I didn't hear that.
Right. He didn't elaborate on it. I thought that's where he was going. But nevertheless,
no. But King Wong's Arts family were here as laborers. They weren't here to do the railroads, but they also were brought here as laborers in the 18th.
But they couldn't establish domicility.
I know.
Yeah. Right. Like, and so I think, again, like, and Alito didn't elaborate on the distinction, and maybe you understand the distinction better than me. But I feel like even Alito conceding the fact that, like, their law is racist, he's like, okay, listen, this is English common law, all right? The allegiance is to China.
Yes.
Okay, they don't have domicility here, so they can't even avail themselves to that kind of common law argument, right? Because they don't have domicility. Now again, Alito didn't elaborate on the distinction. I trust Alito, so that's where I thought he was going with it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but nevertheless, I feel like Cecilia is trying to desperately move away. I mean, even when you see, like you mentioned it, Kagan tries to throw her, like, a different kind of thing. Like she brings up the, like they're trying to write their opinion, right? Because they're talking to each other on the bench. Like somebody like Alito, like, he's going to care about this domicility thing. Tell me what to make of this. And she's like, I ain't trying to tell y'all shit about domicility because it's not a part of it.
No, I understand that, but why can't? I don't know.
That our laws are better. Then we have to follow the laws that exist to obtain power. We have to respect the law that we will impose. Because if we teach a disrespect for the law, how then can we use the law to serve us? And so we have all these people out here on the right and the left who believe that we can just enforce the laws we like, ignore the ones we don't. And this will always result in discord, in strife, in pain and suffering, and exploitation, and a total lack of our sovereignty.
The law was written to condemn someone else to save them.
Don't worry about